Everybody, thanks for coming. I'd like to call the meeting of the Planning Board to order. This is a special meeting on August 27, 2024. And this entire meeting will focus on proposed changes to Tiverton's waterfront zone in our zoning code. Both the map of the zone and the uses that are permitted in it or not permitted in it. So I would like to begin, as always, with a roll call to establish a quorum because we will be taking votes tonight. So Christopher Shriver.
Here.
Bill Gerlach is not able to be with us because of a work conflict, but he has made some comments and given those to Ashley, and Ashley will share those with us at the appropriate time. Janice Gomes.
Present.
Richard Taylor.
Present.
Rosemary Eva.
Present.
Patricia Hilton.
Present.
V.A. Lopes is not with us, but I'm guessing she'll come in a little later.
She's going to be out today.
Oh, she'll be out today, okay. Stephen Clark.
Present.
And I'm Stu Hardy, the chair of the Planning Board. I'd like to actually begin our meeting tonight with a positive suggestion to staff that at our next meeting and going forward, this is a positive forward-looking suggestion, at our next meeting, which is coming up in 2 weeks, that staff try to get the agenda and the backup materials out no later than the Friday before the meeting, so that we'll all have at least the weekend to look the materials over. And that means a week from Friday, because our meeting is coming up on the 10th of, our next meeting, our next regular monthly meeting is September 10. So that's my positive recommendation. And I hope that we can accomplish that. A week from Friday. So going into the special meeting agenda, I'd like to follow Todd's memo. And we all got a memo from Todd this past Friday in which he sort of suggested a way to navigate our way through a very complex agenda by taking each of the agenda items and showing what it is that we have to discuss and decide upon. So I'd like to use that as sort of our guide. But I think to begin, to begin, we need to begin where we left off at our August 6th meeting. And on August 6th, we went through the use table for the proposed Waterfront 1 and Waterfront 2 districts and decided what uses we thought were appropriate, what uses we thought were not appropriate, and what uses we thought could be approved, but only with a special use permit. And Tricia Hilton led us through that process, going through the use table. And I spoke to her a few days ago, and she is prepared to lead us the rest of the way. We probably got, 3/4 of the way through at our last meeting, but we still have a ways to go. So Tricia, if you could, maybe I'm catching you a little unawares. In fact, we could actually take the agenda out of order if you.
No, I'm okay.
You're okay?
Yeah, I have my marked up copy, and Ed was nice enough to print me out a clean copy, so I had a clean
Okay.
copy and the marked up one.
So tell us, so that everybody knows what document we're working off and what page we're on.
Okay, so, you should be working on the document that Ashley actually took whatever we got done at the last meeting and updated it, right, Ashley, I'm correct here? So it's titled Article 4, District Use Regulations. The first says page 2 of 2, but there a different date on this one? I don't think so.
Is it the one you emailed, Ashley?
Yes.
All right,
So this is the one we got, it was distributed in hard copy yesterday and maybe distributed earlier in electronic copy, but this is the one.
we're doing the district use table,
It's
Trish?
the blank page on the front.
It's the blank
Correct.
page.
And at the bottom of
it
the
does-
second page?
It does have a date of July 16, 2024, at the very bottom.
It's 28 pages. Hold on, Trish, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page, literally.
It's 28 of 39.
I have a header with the date and it's not there.
That's fine. We have the,
I did date it though, but it's.
Right,
for
but
some
down in the
reason
footer,
that
everyone
header's
has-
not there.
as Stu said, created 2024-07-16 at 9:57 Eastern Time. 28 pages.
Okay,
First real page is 2 of
okay.
28. Steve, you're good?
Do you want me to put it up there?
Yeah, let's go ahead.
Can you turn that thing on, please?
Rosemary, you have the right document?
Yes.
Okay. And Trish, what page did you want to start on?
So, this is the only thing, my note, because I didn't make a mark on my paper of exactly where we stopped, but my notes stop, on, this says page 8 of 21, section 8, restaurants and entertainment. So
All right.
We stopped there.
So restaurants and entertainment.
Is that what the notes are actually?
Yes.
And all we're talking about now is whether it should be a special use, permitted by right or not permitted?
No, we've actually finished, I think we finished restaurants and entertainment, but we're on to, see, Ashley's is one on each page. So, I'm sorry, on Ashley's new clean version of this, it would be page 9 of 18, titled, section 9, services.
Actually, it says 9 of 8.
9 of 8, sorry.
So just to explain, we are marking up something that is already in our current zoning code. It's called the use table, and it lists all of the different uses in all of the different zones, and whether or not a use is permitted by right, that's a P, not permitted, that's an N, or permitted by special use permit, which means that that somebody who wants to do that use has to come before either the planning board or the zoning board for relief. So just to.
It probably is printing differently than you're seeing it on my screen, because
No, you're good.
you're good? All right.
Okay, so Tricia has been walking us through this, and we are now at section 9, service businesses.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, in the past, we had just one waterfront district. So what's now marked Waterfront 1 has the original of what was allowed in the waterfront, plus any changes we've made to it. W2 is all new. Item A has a change, personal convenience services, including a barber shop, a beautician, a shoe repair, a tailor. That was not permitted in the waterfront anywhere before. Now it would be permitted in both zones. And stop me if you have, I'm just gonna go through these, but if somebody has an issue, a thought, I have a question, they should just interrupt. Item C, specialty services, including but not limited to a, printing shop, a photo studio, an interior decorating sign. That was not permitted. That would now be permitted in both zones. Item K, commercial dock or pier, that's always been permitted, so we're just permitting that in W2. Item L, storage, repair, and sales of boats and marine accessories. That was not permitted in the waterfront before. It now would be a permitted by right use in Waterfront 1. It would be a special use permit in Waterfront 2, and let me just pull up my page here that has the note for that, S5.
And while Tricia is doing that, Waterfront One is just a very small parcel way up on the Fall River border on Bay Street, which includes only the tank farm. So that parcel of land that is probably no more than 10 acres, and is covered by oil tanks.
It actually includes a little bit more than that.
And a little bit more than that, a triangular piece of land.
No, not so much that. There is a parcel directly to the south that's already zoned waterfront. It's that portion of the Simpson property that's already zoned waterfront. So, Ashley, can you bring the map up?
Well, we're gonna actually be doing this later. I was just kind
Okay.
of just trying to explain that when we talk about
Okay.
Waterfront One, we're talking about that section.
Okay,
And then Waterfront Two would be everything else.
Yeah.
Waterfront One would be sort of a more intensive use, intensive waterfront use, more of an industrial. Waterfront Two is really modeled on what you see on the Bristol waterfront or the Warren waterfront. Shops, boutiques, restaurants, pedestrian-friendly, and high quality.
so back to item L, the storage, repair, and sales of boats and marine accessories. That would be a permitted right use in Waterfront One, a special use permit in Waterfront Two. And the criteria that was suggested on that was that if the building, the building could be up to 10,000 square feet permitted by right, and up to 20,000 square feet permitted by special use permit. So in order to have a larger facility, you'd have to have a special use permit. Then we've added two new items, marina and boatyard. We didn't really have those in our prior description that was very good. So Ashley has in your document, Ashley, can you bring up the description that we, a marina would be a facility, I found it. A marina would be a facility that includes docks, moorings, limited facilities, including, restrooms, retail store space not to exceed, and this says X amount, so we need to talk about that a little bit, in a fuel dock. So, something that would be not dissimilar to what you see at Standish Boatyard kind of size. A boatyard, is more of a full-service facility where you would have all of the uses, or could have all of the uses of a marina, but you could also have indoor storage, repair buildings, larger boat sales, those kinds of things. And the idea that would be that a marina, which is this smaller, less intense one, would be permitted in both districts. A boatyard would be permitted by right in Waterfront One, or either with a special use permit or performance standards in the Waterfront Two district. And I think the recommendation on that for a special, if it were to be a special use permit, is, looking for this. I see
Yeah, yeah.
P6,
Tricia
Ashley.
just referred to it.
So,
They're in the packet that was just
It's
distributed
in Ashley's
yesterday.
other document, Rosemary.
Yeah, it was in Ashley's
It's
other
gonna be a lot of
document
going back and
that you
forth.
got yesterday.
All right, I mean, I just got it and,
The
and I wanna make sure that
definitions
we
you're
have the
talking about?
definition.
Yeah, I have to say,
I apologize, I left early at the last meeting, so.
No, that has nothing to do with the last meeting. We just got these out Friday evening. Monday,
I just got it yesterday.
Friday evening, I think it was mailed out.
Town hall
I
was
know.
closed. I know, we talked.
I know.
So, is everybody okay with the idea of a marina being permitted in both districts? Okay. The one question that's open a little bit about a marina is, in terms of retail space, what's a reasonable amount of square footage? You know, most marinas sell some spare parts and, you know, marine oil and, you know, cleats and whatever else. I don't think anybody wants the 20,000 square foot, you know, West Marine. Do we have a thought on restricting the retail portion in size, or?
So Standish, the whole upper level of Standish Boatyard is retail equipment and supplies and anything that you would need for a boat, and that's less than 5,000 square feet. I would say put a limit of 5,000 square feet on, you know, you all know the Standish Boatyard, the size of the Standish Boatyard. It's well under 5,000 square feet. I wouldn't go above 5,000 square feet.
Anybody else got a number?
So I'll only say that if you restrict it by using a numeric value like 5,000 square feet, there's nothing that would prevent them from making a 5,000 square foot retail space and dedicating 500 feet to the actual marina function. Like, I just don't wanna see if the idea is that that's ancillary to the marina function,
Yeah.
should probably be a percentage of the total square footage of the marina itself, the marina building itself, as opposed to just a blanket square footage, because then you can't control the fact that the marina building might just be like almost completely dedicated to retail sales, if that's a concern.
Right, although, well, I'm not so concerned about that, because we're gonna allow retail sales anyways.
You are.
So if somebody wants to just have a retail sales building, they can just have a retail sales building and not try and call it a marina. I just, you know, I mean, we don't have to put a number on this. I just don't know that anybody wants a, you know, I don't know that, you know, how big a building that, if we should restrict it and at what size. So I'm looking for suggestions here.
What's allowed to be built down there in size?
Now,
Mhm.
almost nothing. I mean, that's one of the, that's one of the problems, is that we don't actually have an allowable category for that.
Right.
Which is kinda silly that we have a waterfront and we can't have that.
And is it
Do you
5,000?
recall-
Yeah,
Sorry.
I was gonna say,
No, do you recall how many square feet the Don's building is, Don's Boatyard? I think we said a quarter of an acre or something like that, when we were talking about that one.
I mean, Ashley can pull up the GIS map and
I can.
see what the square footage on that building is.
Not to sound like a broken record, but I am very concerned about the parking. I mean, in this, along Main Road, we're using Standish Boatyard, but the parking is critical.
I don't disagree, Rosemary, I mean.
I mean, is
the-
there some way of putting a, you know,
Well, you're gonna have parking standards that are gonna be independent, like, we're gonna revise the parking standards independently, so we will address parking
I mean,
at
maybe,
some point.
I don't mean to prohibit it, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's really a safety problem.
I think all these uses are, there's gonna I mean, the parking matrix has to get updated, and that is gonna be one of the limiting factors on our waterfront, is that, you know, there's small
permitted.
lots, and there's not gonna be lots of parking, so some things just might end up being limited in size, because their lot's only so big, and they're gonna have to have X number of parking spaces, and that's, you can't. That'll be it, you know?
and is 5,000 square feet the footprint, or can they have a double decker and have a 10,000 square foot?
I think that that's the amount of space that's dedicated to retail, so, or whatever the number is, that's the amount of space that can be dedicated to their store portion. I mean, it's possible we could say, we don't need a number.
I was going to say, you don't need to define it, as long as you say it's accessory to, then it can't be larger than the primary use.
I mean, we could do that too, and
Unless
not
you
worry about
free
trying
market economy.
to stick a number on it.
I agree, that makes more sense.
Okay,
Let's
So
make
in
it
the
an accessory
definition,
use.
you wanna say that,
So,
Right.
and Trish, I'm sorry, I was trying to find where it even said X square feet, whether, I don't see it in the definition of marina, and I don't see marina in performance criteria or special use.
okay, so in Ash, it's like on the very last page of page 21 of 21 of my original document, and I don't know where it is in Ashley's. But it's, see at the very bottom,
which specific thing are we talking about?
The
the
X square feet.
definition of marina or,
So we
Boatyard.
would have added that, I think, to the should have added that to the definition, I thought we did.
No. Not for marina.
Alright, let me grab that document.
I see the definition on Tricia's document that we were using last time.
yep.
Right. Trying to centralize this,
I
Yeah.
know, well, I know.
we all are.
Yep. The only thing I would say about the definition is that I would say that a
It is
marina.
it's right there, 115.
Where? Marina is, where's the X square feet?
I didn't put that in. This is the definition that I took from the last document that I had where we suggested definitions, but if the
Zoning
committee
update committee had a slightly different
changed
one.
it, then
But
let's just
I think-
modify this to match Tricia's.
That's the same definition that I have from zoning revision.
Which may
This
be-
one or hers?
No, yours.
This is
one.
what I have as the
Yeah.
last definition from the
Right.
zoning revision committee.
Right.
Well, I think that the marina definition that you have
Oops,
there is
sorry.
probably fine. I'm looking to see what page it is on.
Does everybody agree that that definition is okay? Does anybody have any suggestions for improving that definition?
I just wanna look at it really quickly compared to. Launching ramps, food, repairs. Yeah, but we can scratch the part at the bottom about, creating two categories, cause
Yeah.
essentially that's what we did when we created a boatyard, right?
So that's the
Just
definition.
Launching ramps, fuel.
Actually, we did take out this too, there's no need for that. Whoops, don't do that.
Okay, actually, I do slightly have a different, I have a slightly different thing, because this marina includes sales of boats, which we had put that in almost like a separate category, right?
We did put a place, we did add, I think we added. This way. Oops, that's the wrong one, hold on. We had put in boat sales, I think,
Yeah.
but we wanna,
Boatyard.
I wanna also recognize the fact that you might have a marina that does boat sales, you might have a marina that doesn't do boat sales, and you might have boat sales that are not technically a marina. So do you really want to completely separate those into
Yes, and here, I think we do. So the idea is that a marina is a smaller facility that has docks and moorings and restrooms and a shower and, some limited amount of retail. And, they might have a mechanic that's on site that goes and does certain things. But a boatyard is a bigger thing that would include sales, that would include, a service building, that would be it would be a marina plus all those other things.
So let me just go back up to, because we must have added a definition for boatyard.
Yes,
Yeah.
it did.
I don't
Page
have
3
one.
of 19.
Yes, I'm looking at one here. It says, an area of land or water designated for the storage, indoor and outdoor, maintenance, repair, sales, and construction of boats and other boatyards may also include docks for temporary and long-term storage, and may include services facilities such as fueling, retail sales, marine products, laundry services, and other marine-related services. So, a boatyard is really like a marina plus.
Mm-hmm. So what do you want to take out of the definition of marina?
I would suggest taking out the boat sales and I would take out the sales of boats.
So I will only point out that if you look 2 lines above, you're permitting storage, repairs, sales of boats and marine accessories. Like I feel like these are a little bit, there's overlapping to some degree here, and they're not discrete things. Like you may have a boatyard that's also a marina that also does storage, repair, sales, but you don't have to.
Chris?
Yeah, I agree with what Ashley's saying. I mean, there's been a lot of different marinas where it encompasses everything. And what if you want to put a luncheonette in this retail store? Is that going to be allowed as well? Are you going to be able to sell merch? Or is it just equipment and parts? So when somebody rolls in there and they start putting shirts and hats and
Sunglasses, yeah.
Oakleys and everything else in there,
Yeah, but
that's what's going to happen.
Packaged foods.
Yeah, and then it's gonna happen because these people are gonna dock their boat, they're gonna get a shower, they're gonna grab a sandwich or whatever it may be. I think we should be ready for that to occur.
So I think to your point, that you would consider that a boatyard. I think a marina, I think of a boatyard as like the place where I store a boat, I get a boat worked on,
Right,
mechanical stuff, or storage for the off-season. Marina, I think of the structure with the building that sells the gasoline and the supplies and the other things that maybe doesn't even store or sell boats. It can, it doesn't have to.
so then do we limit it then just by size of a building potentially?
You could. I mean, we're limiting boatyard by 10,000 square feet. So a boatyard is limited to a 10,000 square foot building, special use permit above that. Marina and the storage, repair, and sales of boats and marine accessories, we have not placed any restriction on the size of the structure.
I guess what I'm thinking of is, there are smaller marinas, right, that if they've got a storage building, it's fairly small. You're not talking about, kind of the big building that you would see at NEB or over at, even at Safe Harbor in Portsmouth, sort of like that sort of big giant kind of building where they do a lot of repair work and they have a paint shop and yada, 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 yada. So maybe we have only one category and we just separate it by building size?
I think that makes sense.
building size of area too. I mean, the lot size is important.
Well, no,
I mean, the way we've defined a boatyard here, it is a marina and then some.
Right.
What are we trying to accomplish by having two categories?
I think what we're trying to accomplish is that on the industrial parcels in the far north, if somebody wants to build an NEB-style boatyard, right, that's basically industrial land up there now, next to the gas tanks, and somebody wants to actually build a full-service kind of marina where they've got big storage yards, they've got big repair buildings, whatever else, that there is a place that somebody could do that. And then the rest of it, we're looking at more, a smaller facility. It still may have a building, it still may have, but not kind of the sort of bigger building, the sort of bigger facility.
Then I would limit what a marina, because essentially you're saying they can basically have the same things for the most part. And if size is the concern, then let's just limit by size instead of trying to break these down into too many categories.
I'm good with that.
And is there a purpose for the marina? Is it commercial? Can boats offload there, or is it just pleasure craft, or is that something we need to consider while we're at this too?
That was my note, Chris.
Because if you go to
Sorry,
Bristol on State Street, you have commingled vessels,
Right. Right.
Commercial and,
commercial and pleasure boats, for sure. And you're gonna run into that there. And then when you say boatyard, what are the limitations gonna be? Are you gonna restrict the bigger vessels coming up the river and docking there to get work done? And what will be the prohibitions there?
Right.
Are we gonna limit that as well?
Well, the definition here is marinas include coastal or inland river and waterway docks, or basins with moorings and services for vessels. Boatyards are waterside locations where vessels are built, maintained, docked, or stored.
And we're gonna have pump-out station requirements and things like that too. That gets into play at this point too.
Yeah, well, they all are gonna
fuel.
have to have a pump out.
Fuel.
And pump-outs for the bilges and everything become a factor as well.
Well, what is the board's pleasure here?
Do they become commercial docks as well,
I mean, I don't, you can have a commercial dock now. That's a permitted right in both of them. So I don't know that we're gonna take that away.
I'm gonna interrupt you because you had a definition of commercial dock and I didn't know what that meant. Was it to service commercial industries? Was it for docking commercial boats?
It's for docking commercial boats.
Right now, take it, we've got Mataronis down there. I mean, he offloaded, it's kind of a marina. You've got Standish.
And you've got a couple little places underneath the bridge, and then you've got, well, if anybody ever does anything with the quality boatyard there.
Underneath the bridge is just where the state,
No, there's a little marina in there.
so
right?
just for a point of reference, John printed Standish, so the gross building area is 11,505.
with no parking.
Don's.
So, should we just separate these two things by size? And say that's it? It's the building size?
I mean, I don't wanna complicate this more than it already is, but to
Go ahead.
Rosemary's point as well, there's a lot that happens in a marina and a boatyard outside of the building.
Right.
The land.
But that's going to be severely limited by the fact that we don't have a lot of large parcels.
Yes.
Right.
Most of the, parcels are going to be small, and that will, so it'll limit itself. I just go with the size of the building.
What if we change the definition of boatyard that's here and take out, or maybe this is where you limit the retail sales piece of it, so that a boatyard is primarily designed for storage, maintenance, boat building, whatever, and the marina is when I say storage, I mean like on land storage, and the marina is the use that has what we've talked about, like you can come in and take a shower, you can grab some supplies, you can fuel up at the dock, and that way you've differentiated the two uses, and you can put a size restriction if you want to. Somebody can do the bigger thing, but they're a boatyard, and maybe that's a special use permit, and the marina up to a certain building size is permitted by right.
I'm okay with that, although I do think we have to be careful. You know, most marinas aren't gonna survive if they can't have winter storage, even if it's outdoor shrink wrapped. So I wouldn't wanna say, oh, a marina can't have storage, because, you know, those guys need that business in the winter time.
So then in that case, I would say let's not differentiate between marina and boatyard and just say it's all allowed within this definition, whether we decide it's called a marina or a boatyard, but up to this size is a permitted by right, and beyond that is a special use permit, so that the uses are allowed in across, but if size is the real issue and we're less concerned about whether they can store the boats or not store the boats, or sell the materials or not sell the materials, and we're more concerned about size, let's have one use that is broken down by size.
I'm good with that.
Yep.
So I'm gonna combine boatyard and marina definitions into one definition.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're gonna do it the same way we've done it here, which is boatyard, where it's S or P with a footnote, and the footnote says permitted by right up to this size structure, over this size structure, special use permit.
Okay, and I would say the structure size, I would be okay with 10,000 square, with the first floor, 10,000 square foot.
The footprint, 10,000 square foot. Yes, we actually discussed this in the zoning revision committee meeting. And I think that was the number we came up with, 10,000. Anything more would require a special use permit.
Now,
Sorry.
but then we do have to come up with some special use criteria for it, right?
Well, maybe we just say 10,000 square feet, period.
But then if you're gonna put them through the special use permit process, you have to have criteria.
Yeah, no,
does.
but.
That could be the only
That could be the
criteria.
only
That would be,
criteria?
that would be the criteria, would be the size.
Okay. All right, as long as everybody's good with that. Okay, are we
I
good?
don't follow that at all. I'm sorry. People are truant. The specific and objective criteria for a special use permit is that your structure is 10,000 square feet.
That's both specific and objective. Although,
You're gonna make them come to the board to
Just
say,
to
I'm
say
designing a
that.
building of 10,000
Yeah,
square
no, I
feet.
hear where you're coming from. Did we, hold on, B, C.
Well, why not just say permitted, but then have a performance standard that would say up to 10,000 square feet in size? And nothing more.
Are you thinking of having them permitted by right in a different zone? So permitted by right in the Waterfront 1, if it's over 10,000, but prohibited?
That would be
And Waterfront Two, or vice versa?
Waterfront 1 would be simply permitted, because that's the industrial
Yep.
heavy use. Waterfront 2 would have the size restriction of 10,000 square feet.
So prohibited.
Anything, it would be permitted up to 10,000 square
Right,
feet.
okay.
And what goes on in that 10,000 square feet is whatever they do, whatever they need to do. But I think that would, and I think that we actually looked up the size of Don's Marina. And Sue, do you happen to remember that? But I think that Don's Marina came out to about 10,000 square feet. That's a pretty good-sized building.
It
a
is,
marine
although
Accessory.
I would not like to not give, for example, if somebody bought the Quality Boatyard property and actually wanted to put something there, because that's a bigger that's a bigger parcel. Or if you could ever get DEM off the stick underneath the bridge, to have, if they wanted to have a facility in those two places that were a little bit bigger. So I think, I'm more inclined to go with Ashley's recommendation that up to 10,000 square feet be permitted everywhere. Above 10,000 square feet be a special use permit.
But then you need specific
But then
and
you need-
objective criteria.
But then you do need specific and objective criteria. One of the things, for example, would be that, I wouldn't want to put something like that right next to a residential property, right? So I might say that, that's not.
I think we have to be really careful about that, because Humphreys Wharf, which is Quality Yacht and several other businesses, it's the big parcel of land just north of the yacht club on Riverside Drive. That's in a residential area, and that's in an area that is very scenic now, and we have to be really careful about what gets built there. And something will be getting built there pretty darn soon, because the owner, which is a British company, has actually gotten the permits and the assents from CRMC and DEM to put docks out. And I don't want to see a lot of huge metal buildings built on Humphreys Wharf. So I think we have to be really careful. I don't think we should go beyond 10,000.
Well, if we went beyond 10,000 square feet, I'm okay with that, and correct me if I'm wrong. If we limit it to 10,000 square feet, but someone comes in with a proposal that everybody agrees would be a really good fit, and it's not an obnoxious-looking building, they could also come to us for a dimensional variance, correct?
It depends on how you classify this. If you're making the use,
If that happens, they can they can go directly to town council and say, please change zoning. And then town council can come to us and ask for our opinion on that. I mean, because I think it's unlikely, that scenario would necessarily occur.
Todd?
That somebody wants to build something bigger than 10,000 square feet that everybody in town is gonna love.
Were you gonna say something?
it depends on how you do this. If you have the use category, boatyard or marina, whatever it is,
Yeah,
and that's defined as up to 10,000 square feet,
45 minutes.
Yep.
It's a use.
Just
then you require a use
We're
variance,
not gonna
exactly.
get through this tonight.
then you need a use variance.
Correct.
If you make it part of the actual definition of the use, then it's a different use.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm-
If you put, no, I don't mean to interrupt, but there's three ways of thinking about this. If you put it into the use table with a lot size or a building size restriction, or even a lot size restriction, that essentially becomes part of the use. So to vary that, you have to get a
Get a
use
use
variance.
Okay.
If you put it as a special use permit and you list it as a specific and objective criteria for a special use permit, Todd's legal opinion is those are not variable items. They are what they are, and you have to meet them, and if you can't meet them, you can't have your special use permit. The performance standard is where you could say 10,000 square feet, and if somebody comes to you with 12, you can give them a dimensional variance. That's the three kind of categories of thinking about how to do these. Performance standards, you can vary them, you can waive them.
That's right.
Specific and objective, you're stuck with it. If you write it into the actual definition or into the table of uses, it's a different use if it varies from that definition.
So would everybody be comfortable with a performance standard of 10,000 square feet?
I would.
Providing the flexibility of somebody coming, and asking for more. But and then that would be case-by-case basis.
So, just to clarify, I'm gonna combine the definition of boatyard and marina to
Yeah.
encompass everything. We're gonna do permitted. We're gonna do performance standards.
Yep.
Of
And one of
10,000
those
square feet.
performance standards is the 10,000 square feet.
In
So-
Waterfront 2,
In the waterfront too.
yes.
And could the performance standard be larger in Waterfront 1? So,
Yeah, it would just be, there wouldn't be any performance standard at all for Waterfront 1.
Well, you can still put a limit on it. You could say in waterfront 1, you can't be more than 40,000 square feet. And you could make that the performance standard.
But
And then you could
waterfront-
waive that if you wanted to.
Yeah, but Waterfront 1 is an area where any size would be fine, because it would be replacing the oil tanks. It's probably, I mean,
I mean, again,
I
I
don't
wanna
think we need to
remind you, and I think I reminded the zoning revision committee of this, that don't confine yourselves when talking about these things to what you have zoned that for now, because there's nothing that keeps it zoned that way
Right.
except the town council not acting to change the zoning.
right,
So if somebody comes to the town council and wants waterfront zoning on a lot that's adjacent to the waterfront district and it's 50 acres, then they can ask for that, and they
Right.
could get it, and then your self-limiting factor that you've thought about as you've as you've developed this is gone.
yeah.
So
Well-
don't confine yourself to that.
Okay, so we've already said that you can have in Waterfront 1, for example, a specialty retail business that is between 20,000 and 40,000 square feet.
So
So
you're-
why don't we just make that the same limit? Because we're already saying that you
That's
can have
fine.
a specialty retail business in the commercial, the more commercial part of that.
So are we using 10,000 or are we using 20,000?
I would, in Waterfront 1, I would use 40,000.
Up,
Up to-
over 10, up to 40.
Yeah, from
Yes.
0
Or
to 40.
up to 40,
Up to
basically.
40.
Up to
Okay.
40, and,
Okay,
I know you don't wanna belabor this, but are we talking a single building, multiple buildings, aggregate? Cause you have your store where people pay for their dock, buy Chris's sandwiches.
But
And then you
that's,
have
but
the
that's,
accessory
that's
building.
on the agenda later on, where we're talking about multiple buildings on a single lot. So we can deal with that
well,
later.
it's a
for
relevant
the
question,
performance standard.
because is this 10,000 square feet gross floor area, or is this a 10,000 square foot footprint?
You've been
Because
talking
there's a
footprint.
difference, well, there's a
No.
difference.
Yeah,
No,
I
we're
know,
talking
but we've been
footprint.
talking footprint.
Okay, so,
Right. Because remember, Ashley, if
that
you,
means that I can, if you give a permission in the ordinance to have multiple buildings, then I can get two 10,000 square foot buildings, if you define it by footprint.
you would have to meet all the setback regulations, and you would have to have parking for all of that, and you would have to, I mean, you'd be,
I think you want to say aggregate, though, of 10,000 square feet.
okay, we'll say aggregate then.
Okay.
Ashley's going no.
Well, not that you don't want to, I just don't want you to be convinced into saying that if that's not really what you mean. I mean, are you okay with them having multiple 10,000 square foot buildings? Because think about it. If one of those buildings is dedicated to the sales and the showers and the laundry, I can have a whole nother 10,000 square foot building where I do all of the renovating or boat
Painting, repairs,
fixing.
engine repairs.
And that building might require 2 extra parking spaces because it's based on employees. There's nobody actually frequenting that place. I don't need public parking for them. I just need to put employee parking for that building.
Okay, well, then I'm okay with aggregate if that's what everybody else thinks, if that's,
I just want to make sure that we're getting to what you're actually looking for as opposed to just like agreeing to a 10,000 square foot aggregate. Maybe you're okay with more.
no, I'm okay with an aggregate for this use in particular. Especially because there is an option to come, if they really come to us and say, listen, we need another accessory building to do this, but we're over our 10,000
If it's a
square
performance
feet.
standard, they can come to you and you can
Then we
waive
could
it.
say, that makes sense, sure, we could say,
Yes.
that doesn't make sense, no.
Okay.
Stu, don't kill me, but I have to ask. So what is the difference of this other use, the storage, repair, and sales of boats and marine accessories?
That's more to give somebody an opportunity who might be in the waterfront, but maybe doesn't have water access, right? I mean, maybe they don't have a dock, maybe they don't have that. But on the other hand, they'd like to, or they might only have a launch ramp, right? I mean,
Okay.
plus the other thing is, that use is in there because keep in mind, we didn't have that use before, but if somebody wants to buy a parcel in the industrial park to sell boats and have storage, have at it. Like, that's not a bad use to have on industrial land anywhere in town. But we've never had it before anywhere.
And the boatyard, is that for both recreational and commercial vessels?
We already allow commercial docks as a permitted right, so I'm not
Well-
sure we wanna but again, if they're going to bring in, if part of their application is we're gonna have a commercial dock, then they gotta have a loading zone and and all that, according to the parking regulations.
Just want to be clear, because the definition of marina said recreational vessels previously. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I don't think we want to create a situation where we're essentially kicking all the commercial fishermen
I
out of
agree.
Tiverton. So, maybe we need to take.
You make the decisions, I just ask the questions.
I don't know about you guys, but maybe then we just need to take the word recreational out.
I agree, that we should take it out.
Definitely.
So whatever combined definition you come up with, Ashley, should not be restricted to recreational.
I know we don't have them, but I was thinking like tour boat.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay. All right, are we good with, Section 9 service businesses, on to Section 10 retail businesses?
That's fine, but I'd like to point out that we have just spent 45 minutes discussing boatyards and marinas. We are lost in the weeds. We are reinventing the wheel. There should be a better way to proceed, but let's slog it out a little bit more. Tricia, let's.
Okay, on retail businesses, in the past, we did not allow any retail businesses in the waterfront. Now, a retail business of less than 20,000 square foot building footprint would be allowed in both zones. Do we need to add the aggregate to this one too?
So I will suggest that in the section that we're gonna revise or look at that talks about multiple buildings, that any size restriction that is noted in the zoning ordinance is applied as an aggregate of all buildings on the property. Does that work? Instead of going one by one and
Yes.
saying in every single one of these, it's an aggregate, if there's a size restriction
Yes.
in the ordinance, it is intended, it is applied to an aggregate of all structures.
Of all
permitted.
structures, correct. And just make that standard across the
Yes.
board
Okay.
for everything.
Unless otherwise noted, and then if
Yep.
you wanted to allow it to separate and have multiple structures that didn't equal the aggregate, you can specifically note those circumstances instead of repeating ourselves over and over again every time we put a size restriction.
Okay, and this, just to clarify, the same thing would apply, because this is a performance standard essentially. An applicant could come for dimensional relief.
It's a performance standard, yes.
As if it's written as a performance standard, the way it's written now, it's the actual use. The use is only up to 20,000, that's why we broke it down into 3 different categories.
Yep, okay.
So you can't come in under A at 21,000 square feet, you have to come in under B.
Okay, all right. So, we would now be permitting retail businesses of less than a 20,000 square foot building footprint in both Waterfront 1 and Waterfront 2. Retail businesses between 20,000 and 40,000 square feet would be permitted only in Waterfront 1, but not in Waterfront 2. And there's another category for businesses over 40,000 square feet, they wouldn't be permitted in either of the zones. Same thing with a mixed-use complex, which would be a structure up to 20,000 square foot building footprint for retail, commercial, or office space would be permitted in both. 20,000 to 40,000 in mixed use would be permitted only in Waterfront 1 and not in Waterfront 2. Anybody, any questions or comments on that one?
Good. Hearing none, let's go on.
Retail sales, item, this is G, I think, retail sales accessory to the manufacture or assembly of products on the premises is currently not permitted in Waterfront 1, but would become a permitted use in Waterfront 1 and 2. Item H, retail sales with open lot storage other than display for sale would be permitted in Waterfront 1, not permitted in Waterfront 2.
Excuse me, Ashley, are those asterisks on G stricken?
They are struck, but because it
Oh,
doesn't
yeah, got
strike
it.
properly, it
That's
looks
fine.
like they're underlined, but
Yeah.
they are, I zoomed in at like 200% to see if it, but it doesn't work.
That's fine.
But they are struck,
They're all struck.
and they're replaced with footnotes.
M, auto or truck or boat sales in a building, including repairs, or in an open lot, would be,
Permitted in both.
would be a permitted use in Waterfront 1. I'm a little concerned why this says a permitted use in Waterfront 2. I know we did that, but obviously,
Because you just did marina where you're allowing boat sales, or boatyard, whatever it is.
yeah. So do we need to do something about a size limit?
Do
to
we
be
really need to
consistent?
include boat in this, since we did? I know we talked about this, and there was a reason that the words "or boat" were added.
I would,
Is achieving anything that the previous category wasn't?
I don't know why we would be permitting auto or truck sales in a waterfront zone. I just don't know. I think it should be no and no.
You have storage, repair, and sales of boats and marine accessories. Then you
Yeah.
have the combined marina boatyard uses now, so.
Yeah, you know what, I think this is a carryover from before we decided to create another
It
category
could
and we
be.
wanted
So I'm
to
gonna
say.
take out "or boat."
Yeah, I think you can take that out.
And I'm gonna, you wanna make this a no?
I would say no in both categories.
I would agree.
Because we have auto
Definitely.
and truck, and they're all over the place, and I think we want to reserve the waterfront, even the industrial waterfront, for more waterfront uses.
Okay, so boat is gone and they're both not permitted.
And they're both not permitted.
They're,
Yep.
okay.
Okay, so that brings us to 11, transportation uses.
And all of those are no's with the exception of a state or municipal off-street parking lot.
Right.
I will say, some of these have no designations for other categories, for all the other zones.
Yes, I
Because the
know.
focus was waterfront, and I didn't get, I mean, I can take a decent guess at most of them, but I didn't wanna just assume. Because we're adding this as a use, you have to decide for the other districts.
Well, I think we will, although I think the zoning update committee will probably only consider them for commercial districts, not for residential districts.
I mean, I'm happy to slap the ends in here now, I'm pretty sure that's what you tell me to do anyway,
Yep.
but I didn't wanna just go do that, and I'm gonna stop here,
So that's a new use, huh?
yes.
We're gonna prohibit the gasoline filling stations. How can we allow refueling boats? What's the difference? Got a gas pump on the pier that you pull up. Is that different from, is that not a filling station?
We have a definition of a gasoline station. In fact, we have, I think, two definitions. One that is just a standalone gasoline and one that would be gasoline and a convenience store attached. But I think a marine, I think we should leave open the option of having gasoline available at our new combined boatyard and marina, if that's what you're getting at.
I
Dick.
agree with that.
Because we need that. We've only got one business in town that actually sells gasoline now. I think that's Standish, right? No one else does in the town of Tiverton. I don't think Don's Marine has it. And there is a definite need to have more of that, so I wouldn't want to preempt that.
Oh, no, I wouldn't either, but it looked like we preempted it.
Seems
up above.
contradictory, Dick.
No, because,
It's not,
It's
it's
not.
specific marina boatyard
Yeah,
use,
Okay.
where that's
yeah,
Yeah, because
customarily an accessory
there were
use.
several places where it seemed like we got it. The original intent was we wanted to get to maximize the coastal use
yes,
of the coast that we had.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
next thing we're fighting, we're doing retail buildings. Chandler's worked just fine. And both of their buildings weren't right up against the water.
In the definition of boatyard marina, Ashley, can we make clear that it's gas or fueling for boats only?
You know, I envisioned that it was
Sure.
more boats pulling up and
I don't think anybody's
Going
gonna
up
drive
there.
their truck up there, but
No, because it's more expensive.
More
Yeah.
expensive.
I also don't
for
think
sure.
by law they're allowed to. No, I mean, I don't,
grade of gas.
yeah.
yeah, I don't think you're allowed to, I don't think marina gasoline permits allow anybody to fill up their car with them. Never mind the fact that it costs way more. Okay,
So wholesale business and storage, are
so,
we all pretty good with what we've got here? Is there any issues here?
Stu, do you want to take over?
No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to move this along.
I know. I just want to make sure everybody knows what is different here. So wholesale business, under section 12, item A, wholesale business and storage of non-flammable and non-explosive material in a building would be allowed in Waterfront 1, not allowed in Waterfront 2. Everything else is not allowed other than item E, which would be a retail outlet accessory to a wholesale or storage use, which would also be permitted only in Waterfront 1. Anybody, anything on wholesale businesses and storage?
I have those as S's, so you've changed them to P's.
Well,
I had those as S's, we're changing them to B's.
We're gonna change them to Ps.
Just in Waterfront one
Just
is a
in-
P, Waterfront two is an N.
Waterfront
Yeah, no,
N
I
is
know.
is an
Yeah,
N.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But it doesn't, Susan, it doesn't make sense, because we're already telling them they can have open lot like,
Yeah.
they could have open lot storage there. Anything else on section 12? Okay, on to 13, industrial uses. Manufacturing, storing, processing, fabricating activities in conformance with Article 13 would both be permitted in Waterfront 1 and Waterfront 2. The question is, do you want to put a limit on the building size in Waterfront 2? Because we're limiting other building sizes, but we don't have a building size limit for that in Waterfront 2. Do we want one?
Wouldn't it follow the previous discussions of size?
I kind of think it makes sense. I mean, if you're gonna limit certain things, and then you're gonna say, well, no, you can have a manufacturing
Why
building.
can you have a bigger building than the limitations, right?
Yeah,
Are you doing that by performance standard?
I would say we should do it the same way we're doing all of them, so they're consistent.
Well, we're not doing them all the same way, to be fair, to be fair, if you go back up into
Well, the retail one isn't, but.
right,
Um,
cause if I put this in as a footnote, then it's a use issue. If I leave it and we add it to the section on performance standards, then it's what we discussed before, you can waive it.
I'm okay with it being a performance standard.
I am too, but we need to set a limit on the size.
I'm going with the
Waterfront
10,000 unless you guys tell me.
10,000 is as far as I would go in a waterfront zone.
Okay.
We don't want anything bigger than that.
So it's a 10,000 square foot maximum in the W2 as a performance
As a performance standard, so that there's flexibility.
Yeah.
But we control the flexibility.
Yeah. So, that's it. So the only one we really got bogged down on was the marina and the boatyard. Then we're done.
And by way of apologies, I would like to say that Patricia did a terrific job, much better than I could have done.
I'm not sure about that, but thank you, Stu.
So that brings us to B, and this is zoning map. And,
Can I ask
Are we
a
gonna do-
question?
and this is,
Stu, before we leave waterfront, can I ask a question?
we're not, we're good spending the whole night on waterfront.
All right, but there, Susan brought up an issue. Has this all, you say we're changing it, has the rest of the subcommittee voted on this?
So, has the rest of the, we've had lots of back and forth discussions on this. This is basically the subcommittee's things, but there were some things where we made a change once and then we said, oh, yeah, well, you know what, if we're gonna change this, we should change that. At the end of the day, we took one final vote to send this here, and so we stopped voting on individual things. It was just like,
Because I don't have that state parking thing at all.
so we went back and forth. But at the end of the day, keep in mind, I mean, the zoning update committee is sending it to us with the idea that, because the council wants our opinion, we can suggest whatever we want and modify whatever we want, and then make that suggestion to the council, and they'll make a determination. So, and some of these things actually came out of what's already on the ground that we didn't think about. So, for example, the state of Rhode Island has a parking lot underneath the bridge in the waterfront zone. It just makes sense to make that a conforming use.
Let's face it, they just do what they wanna do.
Right, but now we're actually putting it in the zoning code that's saying, well, this is gonna be governed by zoning regulations, not you can just do what you wanna do. So we're also trying to get rid of some of the non-conforming things where we can. Todd, you were gonna say something?
I know you wanna skip to the map, or not skip, but go to the map, but are we done with the performance standards, and special, specific and objective criteria? Because what I have here is incomplete.
So what are you,
The district use table that we received on Friday night, page 16 of 28. Restaurant, bars, and nightclubs, there's a footnote for this use.
Yeah. So I will say, I'm not exactly sure what happened. I revised this section based on what you had. I was also pretty sick at the time, and it was like 7:30 at night. The changes I made, for some reason, are not saved here. I just cleaned this up and basically tied these back to the uses in the table, and this language was cleaner. Unfortunately, I don't know what again, I don't know what happened, it might not have saved.
Okay, so you have performance standards, I guess, for restaurants, bars, and nightclubs?
Yeah,
so,
it just, for some reason, didn't save.
so,
So I can fix that and bring it back.
I'm looking to see what I had from our last meeting on that. What I had for restaurants were, restaurants and entertainment. I don't know that I'm looking at this, primary hotel. Folks. Buildings. Yeah, I don't have, I have some scratch notes from our last meeting, but I'm not sure that I can, but Ashley, you say that you have them?
I know that what I apparently didn't properly save had all of that filled out, and this was formatted. So I'll just have to go back and redo that.
Okay,
But we can put this on the agenda for your September
do you have it
meeting.
here now?
I have to go look and see
Okay, okay,
what happened.
so Ashley will bring that back for September.
But if we just put on the agenda the performance standards, we can just discuss the performance standards. They're mostly here, it's just, I
Yeah.
need to clean this up and fill in that, at least that one.
Stu,
Okay.
don't chop my head off, but I think we should have a final document anyways.
Yes.
For September, for everyone to have had an opportunity to
Yeah.
review
Yes.
before we vote.
I agree. I was just wondering if we should have a motion to approve the changes that we have agreed to so far on the use table for Waterfront One and Waterfront Two, or whether we should combine everything we agreed to tonight into one motion.
I don't think we need a motion yet. Let's see where we are at the end of the night. But again, I think we still want to see the final document,
I think we need to see the final document,
and any vote in
everything.
between is
Right.
meaningless.
I need to make those changes that we discussed, and I need to clean, maybe I can find what happened. But if not, I need to clean this back up and make sure that we have those performance standards for all of these, and then I can provide that as a clean copy that reflects all of the changes that you discussed
Yep.
tonight.
Yep.
And
Okay.
we'll put that on the September agenda.
You said, actually,
Yep.
I can't see restaurant, bar.
It's there,
and
it just
nightclubs,
says there
right?
was a footnote for this use, but no suggested criteria. I know I filled that in.
I thought we had some for just restaurant with entertainment.
That's what I'm looking at too, Ed, from the last meeting.
Yep.
Right,
And that's probably what I did, but it
But,
didn't save
like-
into this document.
Yeah, not in that document, but we do have some
Yes,
from before.
yes. I need to pull that into one place.
Yeah, actually, I think that, if I'm remembering this, from your original document with restaurant with entertainment, I think that we actually scratched a lot of it because it's covered by the council's licensing and permitting,
Yes,
their liquor
I remember
license.
that conversation.
So that was a lot of that discussion, was that we were not,
Okay.
we're leaving that to the council under their licensing thing.
For performance standards, I would imagine things in here about like distance from a residential district or use and things that are obviously not gonna be covered by licensing of the council that you would want to put in there, but also want to work with somebody to be able to mitigate issues and maybe reduce the setbacks or increase the, landscaping buffer or whatever.
Yep. Well, I think in general, for all places where commercial intersects residential, we need to have a set of, there just needs to be a set of standards for that, right? So the only other thing on this document, though, that before we leave it, the district dimensional regulations. So, if you look at those, which are of Ashley's new version, on my page, it's on page 15 of 36.
Yeah, so the whole last thing that I did
You get back?
to this is not here.
You hit back?
No, I updated this to reflect the dimensional table that was modified with the 120, which this not in here. It sucks.
But these dimensions are the dimensions, so it would be, if you, in the waterfront, if you have access to public water and to public sewer, you could have a lot as small as 10,000 square feet, which is the current lot size, by the way. But if you don't have public water and public sewer, then the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet.
Yeah, I had updated this table to reflect the lines that had been added for conservation
We
development.
have that.
It's in here?
That's what I'm looking at.
Oh,
My page 12 of 28. District dimensional regulations.
oh, okay.
Single family, two family, multifamily.
Or 13 of 40.
13 or 40.
13. Oh, I have a 40. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
I think they're saying the page, did you say page number?
Oh, these page numbers
Yeah,
change.
the page numbers don't add, yeah. they're all-
Several bunches of page
15
numbers.
or 40. Yeah, 13 or 40.
So, is everybody okay with that, though, the dimensions? That's a change,
This is
because
not updated.
He's got a different
I have the R120.
you don't have a page 15 of 16?
Oh, I do. We'll work it out.
Well, can you put it up on the screen? I mean,
Yeah,
this is a
yeah.
pretty, this is a pretty simple thing, I don't think it's a big, huge discussion. The existing lot dimension in the waterfront is 10,000 square feet. If you don't have public water and public sewer, you can't even get a lot and a septic system on that. So, we're gonna leave, if you have public water and public sewer, you get to stay with 10,000 square feet. If you don't have public water and public sewer, then your minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet. Of course, that only applies to anything that's newly subdivided. All the existing things that are that way, that are pre-existing, non-conforming, are what they are, and, that's it.
Okay, Todd, are we finished with agenda item A? District use regulations?
If you think so, yes. We went through the
Okay.
table. You're good with the performance standards to come and the
And
criteria?
we'll get a new version from Ashley before our next meeting, and we can do the official support and vote and motion at the next meeting. So that brings us to B, and that is the new map. So we're changing the waterfront map to reflect two new districts rather than just have a single waterfront. We're having Waterfront 1 and Waterfront 2. We're also expanding the districts, the two districts in some areas, and we're also subtracting a row of very small cottages that are now zoned waterfront on Riverside Drive, and returning those as to residential, which is what they were before 2001, when they were changed to waterfront. So that's what we're doing in a nutshell, but Ashley will show you the map. And Tricia, did you want to walk us through the map, or is everybody pretty comfortable with what we're doing?
So very quickly, the sort of aqua blue at the very top left corner, that would be Waterfront 1. That is all currently zoned waterfront. There's no anything extra that's being added to it. The long rectangular parcel that you see at the top is where the oil tanks are. And then there is a vacant parcel that's immediately south of that, that's owned by the same owner who owns the split lot portion. There is a commercial dock there. So that would comprise all of Waterfront 1, which is the slightly more, we're not talking about nuclear power plants or anything commercial kind of thing like that, but that would be that. Then moving south, there's the recommendation that about 500 feet in from the waterfront of the Hicks Farm property be designated as Waterfront 2, just for everybody's interest in case they haven't heard. The town of Tiverton Open Space Commission and the Tiverton Land Trust continue their discussions with the owners of the property. We all hope that that will be successful, in which case, if it is, and they're able to come to an agreement with the family, that would then be rezoned immediately to open space. We all hope that that will happen, but there isn't. Then Waterfront, its next big block of Waterfront 2 is the Villages at Mount Hope Bay, which is already zoned waterfront. That's the Villages. And then moving south, and this is where we started to move some things around. There is the bridge. There's the DEM building that's under there. Everything that's there, for the most part, is already in the waterfront. We are adding two parcels. One is that we're adding the DEM's parking lot into the waterfront, so we have some control over that from a zoning point of view. And then there's one little parcel that is the furthest east on the north side, that is a commercial building that's currently zoned residential, but it's like a commercial real estate building. That's going to be added. Below that, you've got some residential properties that are along Riverside Drive. They are, is that the batch that's zone R30 and 40 that we're taking out? I can't remember. Is it just the one south of there? Go back over to the zoning map. Okay, so there are a whole series of very small parcels that are all residential. They're all cottages, they're all, fully residential, that we are going to take out of the waterfront and put back into residential. And there's a couple reasons for this. First of all, they're all houses. And most of them have almost no parking, if any. So the opportunity for them to be commercial, there's a whole strip of them. And the other thing is, for the people who own those houses right now, they are all pre-existing non-conforming, because right now in the waterfront, we do not allow single-family homes. So here they are with single-family homes that aren't allowed, that are in the waterfront that aren't allowed. So that gives them they're pre-existing non-conforming by use, and they're really pre-existing non-conforming by dimension. So we're gonna move them out of waterfront and put them back into the smallest zone, which is W30. So their use will be conforming, they'll now have a conforming residential use. And a lot of them are still gonna be non-conforming by dimension, but not by too much. So it's really a better thing for them to be back in residential. Then you get a little bit south of there, oops, go back up north. And then you get to the area where the Tiverton Yacht Club and the Quality Yacht Yard and that little section of commercial is
This?
in the waterfront. And again, that's gonna stay in the waterfront, it'll be Waterfront One. Again, south, that whole row of small cottages that's there, they're all residential properties. They're gonna get moved out of the waterfront back into,
How you doing? John Moran, 46 Rootside Drive. I own a strip of land across from my house. It has nothing built on it. Right now, it's waterfront commercial. In this new proposal, would that continue to be waterfront commercial, or would it be residential?
Which lot?
I don't know without knowing what lot.
It's just south of the yacht club.
The address?
Do you have an address?
It doesn't have an address.
Well, what's your address, sir? If it's across.
46, but it's not, those are separate lots from my house.
Right,
No,
we're just
yeah.
trying to
We'll find
locate
it.
ourselves.
I can kind of hone in on
You
it.
got the clicker?
Oh, the, where?
It's near the Quality Yachts property,
Whoa.
but south.
So that's 46 Riverside.
Okay, now across the street from that,
Stu, you know better than us.
there's a big, you can see, yes, that right there, and there's no, yeah, right there, there's no houses there.
So that is proposed to, hold on. Hold on, sorry, I'm just trying to orient myself to which lot that is. So it's this one.
Yeah, it's going to
This one.
residential. Yep.
it's that one right there. So that would go to residential.
I don't think I want that.
Well, so, actually, this is an interesting discussion, because in your case, and not that people are trying to pick and choose,
Yeah,
but in your case, at least, it does abut other.
and I'm adjacent to other commercial,
It
yes.
does abut others. Now, I'll be honest,
Yeah,
when we looked at that strip of all those cottages,
yeah,
you know, many of them own property on the other side of the street, and then that little piece that they have on the water side is where they have their dock, or they have something, and sometimes there's houses over there. We didn't want to separate somebody's residential property into two portions. In other words, half your property was, if you had a little cottage over there, if it had a residential use.
no,
I
understood,
would-
but in my case, that land over there is not tied to my house. I just happen to own the house across the street. Those are all separate lots that have nothing to do with my house.
Okay, so this is what I would suggest. I would suggest that we put that on the agenda.
Okay.
Only, we're not trying to get into a situation here where we're picking this one and people get to pick like where they go. But because that lot is adjacent to a block of commercial, then I would say come to the planning board and make your case. We have and again, we don't make the decision, the council does.
Sure.
But I think that we should actually put that one on the agenda for the next meeting and come and make your case, and if it makes sense, then we can recommend that to the council, or not. I mean, it's, but it's because and this is my opinion, the rest of the board might not agree, so everybody here can say no. Part of the goal of this exercise is we are trying to generate a little more activity on our commercial waterfront. We are trying to bring in a little more tax revenue from our commercial waterfront. So if there is someone who has a piece of property that fits, that would like us to consider that, I don't want to be the one to say no.
So I'll also say that I think this parcel may be able to be looked at differently than the adjacent parcels that we took there was a specific purpose in removing them from the waterfront. One is that they have houses on them.
Right.
Two is if that house were to try to be converted into a commercial use, the problem was there's no parking
Right.
for any use there. This lot is significantly larger. I question the viability of building on it anyway because it's a beach. But
It's a beach.
that's a whole different issue that we don't have to concern ourselves with. There's regulatory things in place that will
Right.
take
Right.
care of that. This doesn't fit the same criteria that we were necessarily looking at when we said these are tiny lots, most of them have houses, the ones that don't are almost always connected to the thing across the street from them. There was a concern with converting an existing building into a waterfront use where this particular lot is, like I said, significantly larger, not built on. Any attempt to build on it for waterfront purposes is gonna be regulated heavily by CRMC and would be subject to any parking requirements you'd have, so.
I agree with Ashley. I think that, that we could make the decision tonight to keep this as waterfront. In this case, it would go into Waterfront 2
Yes.
category, but to keep it as waterfront, because it
Okay.
doesn't meet, it doesn't meet the criteria of the small cottages.
So what we would do is, I'll make a note of this, we'll amend the draft map,
Yeah.
so that when the final is coming back to you for voting, this will show up as this will stay
It's
as a waterfront,
W2.
it'll be a W2 lot, and I think there's a distinct difference between this lot and anything that the committee did, and the reasons that they did it.
Yep.
And I will stick my neck out there and say that I think the committee would generally agree that it's okay to move this or keep this as a waterfront too, because it doesn't fit all of those kind of criteria that we were talking about when
Yes.
we did this.
Just so you know, the committee did not go through this on every single lot-by-lot basis. It was
No.
more a general discussion of, let's take all those small cottages,
Oh, no, understood, and this is unique because a lot of those other houses to the north of me that own property on the other side, that's tied in
Right, to
together.
theirs.
This was never, from the beginning of time, ever together. Two separate, totally separate things. I just happen to own both sides of the street.
Listen,
That's where the Fall River Yacht Club used to be.
Yes,
yeah, like I said,
okay.
anything on the waterfront that makes sense, that could have a kayak rental, some commercial thing that is gonna fit, listen, I'm all for it.
And John Reed has his hand up.
John Reed from 21 Riverside Drive. I'd just like to comment generally concerning those cottages.
Yes.
Obviously, the zoning board is trying to upgrade the waterfront and make it more valuable and attractive to people.
Actually, the planning board.
A planning board, and, sorry, thank you, and ultimately the council, I presume.
Yes.
And I think there should be some recognition of the historic value of what is termed a few cottages along the water. They're all over 100 years old. Mine is 150 years old. 3 of them now have markers on them for their historic value. They're recognized in this treatise as being part of an historic district, and particularly pointed out the row south of the yacht club and the row north of the yacht club and the row north of the old railroad bridge. They are non-conforming in their current zoning. Placing them in any residential zone makes them non-conforming still. There is not a single lot that in size or width, setback, or anything conforms with the minimum standard of any residential zone. They are unique, they are special. I think they should be recognized as such. I think just lumping them into an R30 or R40 category fails to recognize their value on the waterfront. And I think the planning board should give some thought as to how they're categorized. I have concerns about how they will be utilized in the future, how they're being utilized now, and I think their historic value as residences should be recognized in the decisions the board makes. I'm not saying that what you're doing necessarily doesn't do that, but I don't think it really recognizes the special quality of some cottages along the water. They're much more than that in the history of this town.
I think we need to distinguish between historic preservation and the zoning map. The zoning, we could come up with a new residential, we could recommend to town council a new residential district that would be, maybe we would call it something like cottage residential, that would have a much smaller, maybe a 10,000 or even a 5,000 foot size limit on it. Because right now, we're thinking of putting it all into R30, which is the smallest residential. We have 30,000 square feet. We could limit that, and we could give it a new name that would sort of recognize it as a special area. We can't do anything by way of historic preservation as much as I would like to, and I would compliment you, sir, on maintaining your own summer property in a beautiful fashion. I sail by it all the time, as you probably know. So, but I don't know, maybe that's something that we could consider. I think it might actually be a good idea, because then it would make it clear that this strip of cottages is really pretty unique.
The other thing also to consider is if you look at other communities, if that stuff isn't protected, what happens is they tend to get larger, even though it's hard to do. They can go up, they can, there's a lot of different ways you can make those things larger and of a bigger scale. Or, you keep 3 walls up and you build a whole new house there. And I think that John has a very good point that, those are very historic and beautiful houses.
Is there any other community in Rhode Island that is doing something that would kind of respond to Mr. Reed's comments about, the fact that this row of cottages is pretty unique? It's not anything like the other R30 neighborhoods that we have in North Tiverton. All of our R30 is way up in North Tiverton. It's nothing like Riverside Drive. Maybe there's something in some other Rhode Island zoning code that would do that. And this is not something unique. I mean, we recognize the unique nature of Tiverton Four Corners by giving that what we call village commercial designation as opposed to general commercial. So I think you have a good point there, and I think that's something that we should consider. But maybe that's something that we need to put on the next agenda for September, because we can't make a decision tonight until we've done a little homework on this.
So the things that I'm thinking as I'm listening to your conversation, taking these out of the waterfront district basically makes these lots that have these existing homes on them only available for homes. Whereas right now, you could theoretically, convert one of these buildings, which is a house, into some kind of waterfront commercial use. And I think what I'm hearing is that's not desirable. These are historic homes. We want to keep them as historic homes. So moving them out of the waterfront district preserves them as homes and keeps them as homes, which
Right.
was certainly the intent, I think, of the zoning committee when we talked about this, is we'd like these to stay as houses.
Exactly.
Moving them into R30 ensures that they stay houses.
It does.
For the most part. I mean, there are a
But
couple
they're-
of other uses that are allowed in residential districts,
But they have unique characteristics that don't really fit the typical R30 zone.
well,
So why
an
couldn't we
R30
create
zone,
a new R zone, a new residential zone that would be more appropriate, would be a more appropriate fit to these cottages?
So the only thing that is a standard in an R30 zone is 30,000 square feet and the dimensional standards. I realize that your R30 zone traditionally is somewhere else and there's a different characteristic to that, but the reality of it is that the only distinguishing feature there really with a zoning district is the dimensional standards of that district. We shouldn't, you get into different things when you're talking about commercial because you have different styles of commercial, you have different types of commercial development. You have village, you have, large scale retail, things like that. You have a variety. If there's something that wants to be done to preserve historic character, the traditional mechanism to do that is a historic district. It's an overlay. There's a lot that goes into that, and it is incredibly restrictive. So just warn you
And it is
of that.
incredibly difficult politically.
It is very difficult politically to implement. Most people do not want to be in a historic district. I'm in a historic district. My house is not historic. It happens to be at the fringe of a mill village. It's not a historic house. I couldn't vinyl side my house. So you gotta, I had to get a permit to put an above-ground pool behind my house, behind a fence that you can't see from the street.
I think we're getting off
because
the
I'm in
topic here a
district.
little, I think we're getting
But
off the topic here a little bit.
Well, you're making suggestions, I just wanna talk about what the suggestions, what that results in or potentially results in. Moving them out of the waterfront achieves keeping them as houses. If there is a desire about character and building materials and things like that.
No, we can't deal with
Well,
that
then
here.
I don't know what you'd accomplish by making a new district for housing.
It would simply recognize that this is this neighborhood is kind of unique, and that these cottages sit on tiny parcels of land, way smaller than 30,000 square feet, way smaller. There's nothing.
You have other areas of town that do the same thing.
And the other thing is with the new laws, if I offended you in any way by just referring to them as cottages.
Oh, no,
I didn't mean that, because I think they're all adorable, and I am. But from the zoning committee's point of view, we were trying to give you back the right as houses, because right now you technically don't have the right to be a house.
You become conforming in use.
And of the uses of the non-conforming things, being non-conforming by dimension is only a little problem. Being non-conforming by use is a really big problem. So that gives them back the right.
And
with the new
the
state law
non-conformance
of
by
the dimension.
The dimension part of
doesn't
it
matter.
is almost taken care of for you, because if you're in a district that is, if you're in a 30,000 square foot district and your lot is 5,000 square feet, the law now requires that all of your dimensional requirements get reduced to a proportional, it's a proportional reduction to the 5,000 square foot lot size. So this is in my opinion, this is the best approach to get you back to as close to conforming as we can and to prevent the turnover of these into something other than the residential cottages that they are today.
So how do the rest of you feel? Do you agree with?
Could I just respond, please?
Yes, but
Briefly.
briefly.
Nothing I suggested was about an historic district and the imposition of regulations of an historic district. I'm quite familiar with that. Nothing at all is being suggested in that regard. It's just designating it with a different kind of categorization because of its unique qualities that is a part of the recognition of the waterfront as a unique quality. Those, we're talking about a quantum difference from R30. My lot is 40 by 30. That's 1,200 square feet. Some of them are only 200 square feet. It's a unique colony of houses, and the zoning classification that recognizes that serves something in the community as we begin to recognize what's very special about the Stonebridge waterfront. The zoning at Tiverton Four Corners is not a regulatory one, unless I'm wrong. I don't think you regulate things, but you recognize.
We don't.
Exactly. You recognize the unique value of those 10 acres, 20 acres there. And this is to separate this out. I think it's certainly worth consideration. And it's a rat hole going down this regulation thing.
I think so too, but I'm not sure that my colleagues agree. I think my colleagues agree with Ashley.
Well, we're agreeing that they're better in a residential zone, we can, this is an ongoing process, we can have a discussion about whether it makes sense to create a distinct residential zone for this or not. We're not gonna create that today anyway.
I'd like to have that discussion after we have an opportunity to look at zoning in other Rhode Island communities to see if anybody has done anything similar, because there are many cottage neighborhoods in our neighboring towns, such as Highland Park and Portsmouth Park. How are they zoned, for example? I mean, so I think we need to do a little research and then maybe have this discussion again. But I'd like to leave the door open, at least a crack, on not making the decision tonight that it's necessarily R30. It might be R something else, something that we don't have yet.
Hang on 1 second. We don't have to vote tonight, but
We need to make progress too.
we need to get this waterfront thing
Sorted out.
done. And
Yep.
if we, because the other thing, if you're gonna talk about this, and then you're gonna be honest, if you're gonna look at this zone and you're gonna create another zone, keep in mind, and we all hope this will never happen, but these are some of the most exposed properties, and when you start then creating zones like that in FEMA flood zones and all that other kind of stuff, there's a whole nother raft of things that come into play. So I'm not opposed to looking at it, but I do not want to hold up getting this other waterfront stuff done, even if this goes into R30 and a year from now we reconsider it, because
Not only the waterfront, we have to finish the special uses.
we have to
a
finish the
timeline.
special use.
So the other thing I wanna say is that a zoning designation is not the only way to recognize an area of town. So let us look at that and see if there are some examples out there of ways to do this. I'm not, at this point, I'm not convinced that a zoning district is the best way. Let us see if there's other ways to I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is the comp plan should call this area out and speak to it. That's not a regulatory issue, but it does come into play with development and policy and all of those things.
Right,
That's where I'd
right.
start, and I'd like to look around and see
Right,
if
I
there
think-
are other
I
opportunities
think
to
that's
get, to recognize the area without rezoning it.
Okay, I think that that's a great idea. We will do that. I will.
Let's keep the conversation
I
going,
will-
but we're not gonna fix this tonight.
Right. I'll be happy to,
Right.
to put some time in and see if there's some other way to recognize this without coming up with a new R zone. Okay, so
Do
why
we
don't
have
you continue?
consensus on 109? I'm sorry.
We do have a consensus on 109,
Okay.
Yeah.
that should remain Waterfront 2.
Yep.
Agreed.
And,
Thank you.
and we will be looking at opportunities to do special recognition of the cottage neighborhood. So keep going
So
south.
going further south, then we get to starting with Standish Boatyard, and we get to, Ashley, can you put the existing zoning up there on the other side?
It is.
It is.
Oh, can you make the general commercial show up? Like
It's all showing up. It's all turned on. So am I not far enough?
Yeah, you
This
might
is
have
the
to
GIS.
zoom out a little bit. Or maybe you have to put just get rid of go back to the, go go a little further south. There we go. Okay,
We hadn't gotten there yet. All right, now we're matching on both sides.
okay.
Okay, so we're south of Standish Boatyard. This is Standish Boatyard up here.
Yeah, go north of Standish Boatyard though. Why is that? Go a little bit north on the map.
Which one?
The one on the right-hand
The
side.
GIS.
Oh, okay. So again, the section above Standish Boatyard, those are, waterfront houses and cottages that would be moved back into a residential zone. And then you get to Standish Boatyard and you can see it. And that's the beginning of, and this is interesting because everything on the water side of the street right now is zoned waterfront. But the commercial stuff on the other side of the street is zone general commercial, which And not only that, if you look at it, the lots are all, or a lot of the lots are split. It's like they picked the distance, I don't know what that is, 300 feet, 500 feet from the road and followed the curve of the road. So you've got these residential properties that are split. Our proposal is that we're gonna sort out the lot lines so that except for one property, we're gonna take those little tiny corners, those little chunks of general commercial that are in the corner of people's residential yards and put them back into residential because, you know, you're not gonna have a commercial use in, 10 feet of space along your property line. But instead of being general commercial, which is a fairly broad designation of commercial uses, that we are gonna make this Waterfront 2. So all of that red would be incorporated into Waterfront 2, as you can see in blue, but you can also see that we're clearing up the lot lines and avoiding having split properties. The only one that's split is the condominium complex building, the one right to the north, Ashley. That one there, we're gonna leave the condo portion in the back, would stay residential, but the front portion of the lot,
Which is this one right here.
yeah, would stay commercial.
Why?
Because it's got some commercial buildings
It's
on it
got some
now.
commercial buildings that's on
That
it
lot
already.
does?
Yeah,
Yeah, it already has commercial buildings on it.
yeah, there's a flower shop and a few other things.
A dentist.
And the dentist
Dentist.
office, and, yeah, there's
Flower
several
shops.
things already there.
On the lot that's highlighted in yellow?
Yeah,
Okay,
yep.
I don't think they're on that lot.
No, they're not.
They're on this lot.
that's why I'm asking.
But the conversation was that we wanted to make that available
Right.
for a commercial use if they wanted to put a commercial use on the property.
Yeah,
At the end
I
of the
mean,
cul-de-sac.
because part of it's already commercial, and again, we're looking to add to the,
It's already split, we just cleaned up the split so that it was straight line.
yeah.
We've got the bank on 155.
So it's
Okay.
all pretty much the same, the same footprint. We're just moving it out of general commercial into waterfront commercial, because general commercial has really broad commercial uses that aren't what we're trying to develop in the waterfront. So moving
There's
south,
a bear down
what did you say,
there. The
Rosemary?
parking is a bear down there.
You know,
It is all over town.
It is all over town, but at the same time, if the town gets serious about it, there's a paper street there that potentially could be looked at for some municipal parking. There's no reason during the off-season why, if Stonebridge actually had more village activity, there couldn't be a sign in front of Grinnell's Beach that, in the wintertime, that says, Stonebridge parking, so that you could think, oh, well, I'll just park in the beach parking lot and walk up to, the village. I mean, there are things we can do.
So
Then,
this is Nanaquacket Bridge.
so that's Nanaquacket Bridge, and you've got the fish market, and again, what's on the opposite side of the street right now is currently zoned waterfront, but you've got the Bridgeport Market, you've got the Manchester building, and then you've got several buildings across the street that, again, they're zoned general commercial, we're gonna put them in the waterfront.
Oh, there's owned waterfront.
Hmm?
There's owned waterfront.
Right, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, they're
They're
not.
staying
They're
waterfront.
staying waterfront.
Two.
Waterfront two. And then going south,
So now we're into Nanaquacket Pond.
so there are two general commercial properties at the bottom of Booger Marsh Road. Same properties, we're just taking them out of general commercial and putting them into waterfront,
Where the old gas station used to be.
where the old gas station used to be. And then going south, you see Don's Marine there, which is right now zoned residential. So we would be moving the Don's Marine property out of residential into waterfront. And then the White Wine Plaza, which is across the street, which is currently zoned residential, we'd be moving that into Waterfront 2. And then the parcel that is just to the north of Don's Marine, where the antique store is out front by the road,
This one?
that one, with the antique store out in the front, that would be moved to Waterfront 2 as well. That's the map.
This will also become the future land use map, this iteration of it.
So are there any questions, comments? Everybody knows what we're doing, everybody is pretty much on board. We've been through this before. That brings us then, and we'll be approving this in a motion
Next month.
next month. Item C on the agenda has already been dealt with. That was part of A, actually. D is the future land use map, and I just wanted to explain that in element 4 or element 5 or chapter 5 of the comprehensive community plan, there's something called the future land use map, and it shows what Tiverton wants to happen to these parcels of land in the future. And so before we change zoning, we really need to change the future land use map, showing that what we're proposing to town council is something that the community in general, through its comprehensive community plan, wants to do. We do have a little bit of a technical delay in that when the planning board discusses changes to the comprehensive community plan, we have to do that in an advertised public hearing, and we have to advertise for 3 weeks. So that will delay us a little bit. Secondly, we can only make 4 changes to the comprehensive plan per year, and we've already made 1 of 4. And then thirdly, when town council gets our recommendation, they have to have an advertised public hearing, which takes more time. So we need to get the map expedited. We need to make that a top priority and make all of the map changes probably all together. Is that your recommendation, Todd?
That's my recommendation, if we can.
That we do it all together. And I think that the zoning revision committee has discussed Bliss Four Corners, map changes there. They've discussed a very minor map change at the intersection of Fish Road and Route 24 in the neighborhood of VD Toyota, and in particular, a lot that is on Route 24 behind Ledgewood Commons. That's the medical complex of medical buildings right off Fish Road. So that has been discussed. Also, the zoning revision committee has talked about changing the zoning along Main Road from 3 different categories of a form-based code, which is now traditional Main Street, pedestrian, friendly destination, and neighborhood business, to 1, just go with traditional Main Street all along the northern part of our main road. So all of that has already been discussed and pretty much approved, I think approved, by the zoning revision committee. Maybe they haven't actually taken a final vote. The only other item for a map change that I would call everybody's attention to is there is a wasteland that is now zoned industrial that stretches from the top of Main Road, from, let's say, Judson Street north to the Fall River border. And if you go east, and that, of course, is a commercial area that is now zoned traditional Main Street, and that's fine. But if you go just east of that, and you go down those side streets, you'll get to a wasteland of where buildings have been torn down, and it goes all the way over to the Bourne Mill. And what the North Tiverton group has been talking about in the past has been infilling that wasteland with commercial and mixed use, because you have a critical mass of consumers in the Bourne Mill. The Bourne Mill complex, of course, as you know, is going to grow even larger when they open the new building, which has, I think, 85 units in it, and there's still a possibility of even more. And you have this village, commercial village right at the top of Main Road, which we used to call in the old days North Tiverton. It's a mill village. But in the middle is this wasteland of parking lots and, not nicely constructed buildings. And if we keep that as industrial, it will fill up with warehouses and square metal, sheet metal buildings, and all of the junk all of the inappropriate development that we are trying to avoid. So we're thinking that you might be
Am I
able
in
to
the
take,
right place?
That,
you might be able to,
that corner?
so
it
what
governs
we're
as far
talking
as that?
about is, this is the old mill village of North Tiverton, going up to the Fall River border. These are all residential neighborhoods here with mostly three-decker tenements and or multifamily houses. That's fine, but then when you get over here, here's the Bourne Mill. When you get in here, this whole block from State Avenue down to Mill, this is Mill Street, and this is Shove. No, this is Mill Street, this is Canonicus, that's State, and this is Shove. So this whole block that is now purple, meaning it's industrial, that's problematical. If we keep it as industrial, it'll look even worse in 10 years than it does now. So I'm hoping that the zoning revision committee will listen to me when I tell them that we need to think about possibly changing that to, and I think would change it to traditional Main Street. So it would be mixed use. You could have shops and restaurants and retail, small retail, as well as residential. You could have a mixture in there, and that would be, I think, but Ashley has also been sitting in on those North Tiverton meetings, and her organization will actually be doing some recommendations. So, but I think we've called that out to Weston and Sampson, and so that they are familiar with that part of town and what the options might be. So, Ashley, did you want to make any comment about that? Leaving it industrial, I think, is a very bad decision.
So I don't have any specific comments on that. I wasn't prepared to talk about that. I don't know that maybe there was a meeting where you guys focused on this and I wasn't there. I think that, the North Tiverton committee's we're gonna be looking at developing a master plan, but if there is a desire, if, whether that's the North Tiverton Committee, or the Planning Board, or the Zoning Committee, I don't know how much rezoning the North Tiverton Committee is gonna do. It's probably gonna come out more in the form of recommendations, but that may be something that we wanna bring to the actual zoning committee for discussion in coordination with the North Tiverton Committee.
Yeah,
Because if it's a concern.
It probably is in the jurisdiction of the zoning revision committee.
The whole town is.
The whole town is, and although it's of interest to the North Tiverton group, it's probably not in their bailiwick. In fact, I think that Mike Burke, the chair, has already said that he would kind of like to stay away from zoning map and zoning districts.
Yeah, I mean, I see more what
And
comes
leave
out
that.
of that committee as being a document that
So-
makes recommendations.
So I'm going to suggest that, and I'll suggest this to Jay Edwards, the chair of the zoning revision committee, that he make the map a priority. And then we can see if there's support on the zoning revision committee to rezone that block of land that I just pointed out. I just wanted to make my colleagues on the planning board aware that that's a part of town that no one pays any attention to, but be very careful about the industrial zoning of it, because the way the industrial zone use table reads, you can do just about anything up there. You can do some really nasty things. And if you want some examples, just look across the border in Fall River. So that's all I wanted to say about that. So.
Well, I'm going to bring up the timing question.
Yes,
then.
so the timing question is absolutely crucial, but we don't completely control that. But I think that Tricia and I will both talk to Jay Edwards and see if we can make zoning map a priority for the next meeting of the zoning revision. The next,
We're meeting Tuesday.
they're meeting on.
Yeah, there's already a meeting on Tuesday.
There's a meeting the day after Labor Day, there is a meeting. I talked to Jay last night about that.
So,
John, did you get a map printed? Like a big one?
Okay.
Remember we talked about it?
Yeah.
And doing like the 4,
Zoning committee meeting next Tuesday. then?
there's a zoning committee meeting next Tuesday. I don't know,
Zoning revision
the
committee.
That's what I
zoning
meant.
revision
Right.
committee met next Tuesday. So, as far as the map changes go and recommendations from the zoning committee, as far as I understand, the main road thing doesn't need a map change because it's
Correct.
just all staying commercial.
As long as you're not changing lots.
We're not changing lots. There's one lot that we're recommending be
What?
added.
What? The future land use map only shows it as commercial.
I know, but we did, I think we talked about the same thing that we talked about. I don't recall, I mean, we'd have to kind of go through here, but it does the same thing where it does split
Split lots.
lots.
Yeah.
Yes, but I don't think, at least the,
Like this little weirdness right here.
I know.
Will you go to the corner of Sousa and Main for me, please? Because that's a split lot. So we may not want to even touch it right now.
Right.
Understood.
I think, at least from the zoning update committee perspective, that, keeping in mind how the zoning update committee is configured, that level of going through all those lots on a lot-by-lot basis is outside of really the scope of work of what the zoning update committee, I think, is got on its plate. So, as of right now, there hasn't been any discussion at the zoning update committee at all. And we did take our sort of, we wrapped up our sort of main road thing. And we're just recommending that it be one zone, not 3, with an updated set of use, an updated use table, but not adjusting anything that would require a map change.
Never voted on that, and Traditional Maine is 50 feet tall.
Excuse me, this is not a public hearing.
But it's not been addressed, and at the last meeting, Tricia said it would be brought up by the planning committee at a meeting like this. And it's not up there, traditional Maine has a 50-foot height limit.
Jamie, please,
About heights.
we're not talking about
Well,
heights.
when is it going to be addressed?
Not tonight. Not for traditional Main Street. Doing the waterfront zone.
So there's one parcel that there's one landlocked parcel, actually two parcels. One parcel that is a split lot that's half commercial, half residential, but the commercial portion of it on the lot is actually on the residential piece, and that backs up to a landlocked lot that we're also recommending be added to commercial. So that would be the other map change. There isn't a map change for the pedestrian-friendly district. We talked about the use table, but we didn't talk about actually changing we didn't talk about changing the map.
So this would be at Bliss Four Corners.
At Bliss Four
Bliss Four
Corners.
Corners is now general commercial.
No,
They're-
it's
they're-
pedestrian
On the
friendly.
future land use map, it's
Oh,
just
on the-
commercial.
Yeah, on the general, so there wouldn't be any change there. We've talked about changing the use table, but not the actual
Yeah.
the
okay.
actual properties.
Okay, I see
So
what you're saying.
that's what we have.
So we don't have to worry about that for the future land use map
No.
because it's already, but didn't we add some additional parcels? There's very little general commercial. The general commercial at Bliss Four Corners is very limited. And didn't we discuss,
I thought we were gonna make that all TFD.
I thought that
It is,
But that's fine, Susan. It's on the future land use map.
It's just
general commercial.
categorized as commercial.
Right, but we did change some of it because the library shouldn't be in it.
All right, so you're telling me you're removing lots or adding
Yeah,
lots?
yeah.
yes.
The other thing that we did, hold on, this is a little slow. The other thing that we did
oh, that's right.
was that
did
we
clean up that.
squared up, we cleaned up some of these lines because they did the same, well, I'm on the wrong, yeah.
Yeah.
They did
They
weird
were
things
splitting
and they
lots.
clipped corners and they split lots, and so we agreed to follow lot lines.
Right. Like
But
that
you're
red
not
one-
doing that with-
red one is supposed to be.
Yeah, and the
residential.
red, that
Main
general commercial, we agreed to change to but again, that doesn't matter, cause when we're talking about the future land use map, it's the category of commercial.
Right.
What matters is where we changed where the district line is, and I think we did that down here,
Yep,
right?
yep.
We had some, how come they're not showing, like this one? That's a split
Right.
lot, that's not a split lot. I feel like there was more of them when we looked at
I think
this.
it's to the left, actually.
This one is a bit weird. I think this one has a corner, maybe, no,
Down, no, down.
down.
It's this general commercial one,
The library?
127.
That's the library.
That's the
Okay.
library.
That's the library.
We agreed to take that out. And I think this is a bigger. See, that's a split
Right.
there, and then I feel like there was more
The
up
one that's right
here.
up above.
There's the
that-
bank
This,
The one that's right up above.
and you've got the restaurant.
Was gonna be residential.
Well, I need the zoning ordinance committee on Tuesday to make a determination.
so the last time we talked about this at the zoning ordinance committee, I suggested that we get the town, the map, like an aerial with the parcel lines, with the zoning districts, and that we, cause what we have right now is this like running list.
Right.
That we actually translate that to a document and we draw the lines clearly so that I can easily take those maps, we can make the amended maps instead of sending a list of maps of lot, plats and lots, that it was cleaner to do this on one set of maps and just make all the changes at the same time. That was my goal for the next meeting. They scheduled it for a day where I can't be there. So we'll have to figure
So
that part out.
Sue Anderson is also on that committee, and John Hoyle sits in on a lot of the meetings of that committee,
More
so.
of these.
So could I make a suggestion for Todd? I know you would like to do this in one fell swoop. I don't think that's gonna be possible. I just don't.
I don't see any future land use map changes other than the waterfront.
So-
I don't know if it's necessary, if it's just cleaning up lot lines.
So I think what we could commit to you is, we can give you the waterfront one, and then anything else
Lumped together.
will get lumped together in one more. So we'll be under our limit of 4 for the year, but we'll lump all the rest of them together.
I'm also thinking about timing though,
I know. Although
because of the 2 public hearings, each having to be advertised for 3 weeks.
Yes, yes, I, understood. I think, I'd like to hope that that we're not talking about really dramatic changes here. The waterfront is the biggest, most dramatic change, in terms of really moving stuff around. The other things are all pretty, they're pretty small, they're not big deals. The town is not gonna fuss if the library is no longer zone general commercial. Probably these folks will be happy to have their lot lines squared away so that they don't have some stupid sliver of their yard that is useless.
But we did change highway commercial to general commercial.
That's
But
okay,
that
future
doesn't
land use
matter.
just shows it as commercial.
So, so I don't think that, I think that third one it'll happen when it happens.
Anytime.
Yeah, I think we're okay. But I will commit that we will try and get those all together in one lump to bring to the planning board, for the planning board to have its say, and then get them to the council.
Okay.
So we're talking about future land use map, not zoning map.
Right.
Both,
They're gonna be
well,
the same.
they're
though.
both,
be
we're,
this-
we're keeping them the same. When you change your future land use map, you get 18 months to bring your zoning into conformance with that. We're doing these simultaneously. I mean, technically, we're doing the future land use map first, then we're doing the zoning, but we're keeping those two things paired together as much as possible to avoid having to circle back on everything at the end and do updates.
But you can't do it reverse.
You can't do it in reverse.
Yeah.
You can't do the zoning until the future land use map is done. You can do them one first and then the other one immediately after, but you have to do them in that order.
Right. And I just wanted to say that, when I was talking about the industrial district in North Tiverton, I don't want that to hold anything up. So we can put that on the back burner, and maybe even deal with that next year. But just so that we can get what can be done quickly and easily to the town council.
I think the waterfront can go and we'll package everything else
Yeah.
together.
Whatever there is, we'll package together and get that, hopefully, yeah.
You'll have your GIS guy take care of getting a new future land use map now
Yes,
created?
yes,
I assume it's not hard,
no.
because we need that before we can advertise.
Yes, because we already have this one,
Right, we already have a map to advertise with.
basically. We already have,
The ordinance map, the zoning ordinance map, right.
oh wait, this
Future
is a
land use.
different one. This is the,
That's the
sorry,
future
this is
land
the future land use.
It's really just
It's
changing
this one.
your
So this is
bounds.
the proposed zoning map for the Waterfront 2. Sorry, it's not responding. This will essentially, the map will look the same, the designations will be somewhat consolidated as they are represented now. All the commercials folded into one commercial future land use, but yes.
You okay with that, Rosemary?
No, I'm looking at something else on this map.
Okay.
But is there also potential for 3 Main Street zones becoming one zone?
It doesn't that is gonna happen, but it
Right.
doesn't matter on the
That-
future land use
No,
map,
but
because
it does matter for the zoning map.
It will matter for the zoning map. It will not matter for the future land use
Okay.
map, because all commercial is
there yet.
designated as commercial.
You have to do
Future land use first.
first before you do the other.
Before we finish this, did Bill Gerlach have anything he wanted to add?
I've been following.
Is there anything that he wanted us to?
He did have comments. I meant to print them out.
No, I have those here. He had a question about the recreation uses, or a comment really, that he wouldn't be, why are we permitting bathing beach, public only, in the Waterfront One zone? Not something he would do.
Well, because we have one because we have Grinnell's there already.
Okay. The performance standards on cemeteries, columbariums, and burial grounds. I just wondered why we did not include columbariums in the discussion or the standards as well. But we can easily add that.
I'll
It's
take,
in the heading, I'll say, but not in the,
okay.
not following. And then the motel, hotel performance standards, you have a circulation plan. And then right after that, you have a safe pedestrian and vehicular circulation requirement.
Okay.
And wanted to know what the difference was between
There probably
circulation.
isn't one.
I don't think there is either.
I will take his notes when I make these revisions, and I'll clean up anything that's, duplicative or doesn't make sense that he's pointed out.
Okay. Thank you, that's where we're at.
Okay, so are we finished with the waterfront map?
Yes. Are we voting on this?
No.
No. Not until you have the map,
Yeah.
next week, or 2 weeks.
So we have now.
You don't have the future land use map.
So you want us to vote?
You
on
have
both?
a zoning.
We have a zoning map.
Could be in tandem.
Okay.
I need to
Yeah,
make this the future land use.
map. Okay.
Okay, so that brings us to agenda item E, which is height.
Can we go back 1 second, Stu?
Yes.
To try to schedule the public hearing and advertising,
Sure.
right?
Uh-huh.
For the future land use map?
Yes. So, but we need a motion to
Approve the future land use map as discussed.
right, to advertise. And then that advertisement will include a picture of the new future land use map. So let's do a motion. I will make a motion to authorize staff to advertise, and the advertisement has to be done 3 weeks in a row, for an amendment to our comprehensive community plan, Chapter 5, Figure 5-4, future land use map, reflecting all of the changes we've discussed tonight. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Tricia. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, those in favor, raise your hand. I think it's unanimous. Yes.
This would be on the October agenda?
Well, we're gonna discuss that now. So they've agreed to advertise the future land use map amendment. Now, when do you want to have the public hearing on that?
Well, we don't have time, obviously, in 2 weeks, we have another September meeting. We don't have any special meeting scheduled before our October meeting. When is our October meeting? Is it fairly early? I think-
October 1.
Oh, October 1, okay, that's actually, it's almost September. So, yeah, we could put it on the October 1 agenda.
Have to run 10th, 17th, and 24th. Or
Yes.
actually, no, because it runs Thursday, so it'd have to run the
12th, 19th,
19th,
26th.
26th.
So we would not have the public hearing for the waterfront until when?
October
October
1.
1st.
That would be, but we would have the map.
Trish, the only earlier date you could do it is the 24th, and that would require advertising, if it's not too late already, for September 5.
And you could technically do it, you'd have to do it on Thursday, you'd have to get it out. So
And we'd have to have the
2 days.
map before we could do that.
Which means that the earliest this would get to the council would be,
1, 2, 3, October 28th.
Is there any reason that the council has to wait to schedule this until they get
Oh, I'm sorry.
the recommendation, or?
They would have it before that. The October 28th would be the first possible hearing.
first possible hearing that they could have.
Correct.
Could they run their advertising at the same time even without it?
Why, do they have to wait for the planning board to hold their hearing? Like, we're looking at this, like, the planning board has to advertise for 3 weeks, then hold their hearing, and then the town council can run their advertising. Like, can't the town council begin their advertising
Sure,
at the same time?
just like we did with the R120.
Right. Like, simultaneously be advertising, so we don't wait for one to finish and then the other one to start. They'll get your recommendation and you'll have your public hearing before them, but there's no reason that I'm aware of that they can't start their process simultaneously and get the advertising started, so they could hold their hearing right after yours.
Yes.
And we don't want to do another joint meeting.
That's up to you.
I know you don't like that idea.
I don't, but that's up to you.
I don't know what their schedule is, but
No idea.
it'd be the 7th.
Usually every other week, so 9,
Be the
23,
14th.
7.
Be the 14th. That's Columbus Day.
Oh,
They've,
It's not the 7th, Sue?
well, that's the first Monday of the month, they don't normally have the first Monday of the month.
Hold on, I'm getting the schedule right now.
If you get every other week, it is the 7th.
They have meetings October 15 and October 28.
If they advertise, could they do it on the 15th if they wanted to?
October 15?
Yeah.
Sure.
And our public hearing would be on the 7th?
First.
First.
The
First,
first.
First.
advertising for it.
Well, if that's as good as we can do, that's as good as we can do. Okay.
They have meetings September 9 and 23. 23 doesn't work. Obviously, 9 doesn't work.
I mean, there are ways to do it faster, it's just what is everyone's inclination to advance this? If you wanna hold special meetings and you wanna do joint meetings, you can make it happen faster. That's up to you guys and the council.
Would the council come here? Planning board meeting?
No.
Okay.
Well, I think staff should start the process of advertising ASAP. So there's no delay there. And I'd like to expedite this if at all possible, and I'd be willing to do a special meeting, but I don't think, we only gain about a week if we do a special meeting, because we have to advertise for 3 weeks. So, waiting for our regular monthly meeting only loses a week of time. But still, and a joint meeting with town council is fine with me. It certainly worked out well on June 24. a whole lot better than I thought it would.
You could potentially do that on the 23rd.
I don't think so. Monday's a holiday,
Right.
so when is advertising due?
Advertising's due Thursday.
I
Of
wouldn't,
this
I
week.
I
For
would,
this, for next,
be
to
in-
run next Thursday?
To be on
Yeah.
September 5
Yeah.
paper.
Can it run 3 successive weeks, including the
Oh.
week of?
Yes, but it can't be after.
It can't be after, actually, so it'd have to
So
be
5/12/19.
5/12/19.
yeah, it,
Wait a minute. To hold it on the 23rd?
Yep.
When does the paper run?
Thursday.
Oh. Yeah, that's the I'm thinking you can run it, but I'm not thinking that it's only a Thursday paper.
We won't ask again, but, or I wouldn't ask again, but I think this one is worth having a joint meeting with council.
So the only problem is that you have to have your map ready to go for Thursday.
Well, let me see if I can make that happen.
Okay.
The map is made.
Just as it changes.
He has to change the legend. And Dan has been really responsive and quick with these for the most part. Let me try.
Okay.
Yeah, but you could change the list of orders.
so are the rest of you fine with a joint meeting if we can make that happen? Obviously, town council has to agree to that.
If the agreement, because I'm hearing, the agreement is this is just waterfront, right?
Right, just water.
That's easy then, because all we have to do is change that legend to reflect the legend on the existing future land use map that he just did.
Right, that's all.
That's it. That I'm not promising, because it's not me that's gonna do it, but I'm feeling relatively confident that I can get you that for Thursday
Right.
morning.
Yeah. 9 a.m.
Yeah, because if we miss that, we lose a whole week.
You also
Okay.
have to
And-
get the council to agree to have the joint hearing with you on the
Yes.
23rd.
I think.
Well,
They have to
I-
also advertise at the same time.
I think so, but I think our
Yes.
two liaisons, Deb and Jay will be
Right,
on
let's-
board with that as
So just so
well.
you know, that their meeting on the 9th is gonna be what should have happened Monday,
Right,
yesterday.
but
'cause they
that
don't have a
wasn't,
quorum.
but that wasn't a super packed agenda, so they'll be
Yeah.
able to figure it out. I
Okay,
have faith in them.
I will take care of the map.
Okay.
okay, so we have passed a motion, and we'll get it as soon as you get the map to add, Ed, we'll contact Secana Times.
The motion, so I'm clear, was to have a joint meeting with the town council on September 23rd. Alternatively, for the planning board to have a hearing on October 1st at its regular meeting.
If we can't make that the 23rd happen.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Hang on a second though, if we can't make that happen, instead of having the planning board, because then we're still gonna be back 3 weeks, the next alternative would be to have a joint meeting with the town council on
On the 15th.
October 13th, which would still make it faster.
October 14th.
15th.
14th.
Whatever,
15th.
15th, yes, because of.
whatever the day is, that would be my preference.
Yeah, that sounds better.
All right, so instead of, okay.
As a joint meeting?
As a joint meeting. Just like, if we can't get it on the 23rd, we'll try for the 25th with them.
Oh.
or the 15th with them.
Right, but my thought was you can do your own on the 1st and they can do their own on the 15th.
Because they can advertise.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Either way.
Either way.
Those are the three options.
Okay,
Yeah, because it's, town council will have to agree,
Right.
so
okay.
we'll see what we can do.
Okay,
Okay, Deb?
we have a motion and a second, right?
We've already done that. Yeah, okay, why don't you make a motion and I'll second it?
Don't we have a motion and a second on the table?
I'll clearly state it again. Public hearing for the future land use map. Staff is authorized to advertise that for September 23rd with a joint meeting with the town council. Alternatively, for the planning board only on October 1st, or alternative to that, joint with the town council on October 15th.
Ed, did you get those 3 dates? Okay, so that's
your
the
motion.
motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that? You see what we're trying to do? We're trying to move things as quickly as possible. Those in favor? And it looks unanimous.
Yep. Oh, but the only thing he's gonna have to do though for that map is to add the
Yes,
property.
109.
Add 109.
Yep,
Okay.
it's in my notes.
Okay, what's next on our agenda?
Okay, so that brings us to agenda item E, which has to do with district dimensional regulations on height. Tricia, how do you want to handle this? I don't think we have anything in our packet on height.
We do. We do.
Did we talk about definitions, though?
Yeah, we do have to amend the definitions, because we are adding a lot of things to the use table that we added definitions for.
So,
And if you add them to the use table without amending the definitions, there would be uses without a definition.
And some of these definitions, I'll call them, have standards to them.
right.
So before we get to height, we will take a look at definitions, and we do have that in our packet. It was one of the things that Ashley handed out. And Todd, is this something that here it is right here. Is this something that we need to go through, or can we have Ashley kind of walk us through? Who put this together, Ashley? Your group, or did Todd put it together?
No, we put this together based on the changes that the zoning committee was making as we looked at the use tables when there was a use that was in there that didn't have a proper definition. We went and found one or created one and added it, and then in some cases, they added uses. We defined those uses.
Okay, so would you like us to approve this document?
I don't think you can. Things need to be changed in that.
Okay, so who would like to lead the discussion of what things need to be changed?
I'll go through so we can get through this with my questions. The first one is above ground storage tank. Is this of all materials, of anything?
What page are you on?
Page 1, sorry, right on page 1.
Okay,
Number 1, above ground storage tank. Above ground containment vessel including oil, ancillary piping, and dispensing systems.
and what is your question?
Is this storage of everything? Is this only petroleum products, water?
I would have to say yes, because it doesn't differentiate. It
Right.
doesn't say storage of certain items and not other items.
Okay.
May I ask one question though? Is that, where did that use get added from?
I don't recall the conversation, but we didn't add anything in here that wasn't part of a conversation from the zoning committee or part of the notes that you had sent me on your updated definitions. So I don't recall exactly. If there's a consensus that you don't need it. Do you have any thoughts on that, sir?
No.
Come on up.
It was for petroleum storage tanks initially, but it doesn't mean that it's relegated to solely petroleum products.
He's right here.
It's either UST or an AST.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. Oh, no.
Underground or above ground?
Yeah, you've got that document.
Yeah.
It just
So
got it
it was
yesterday.
a conversation.
Okay. Oh, John, we've got to get through this.
Oh, I understand that. I'm not, I'm staying the only
I'm
one that has
pushing
to.
60, so I expire at a time.
Yeah, like I said, it came up in some sort of conversation early on.
I agree, I don't remember the exact conversation, we talked about definitions
Yep.
months ago.
Months ago, and we just didn't have a definition for it.
Is there a concern, Todd?
I just didn't understand why, because we have water tank as a use. I don't recall seeing above-ground storage tanks as a use.
don't-
Or is
Is it
it?
in the zoning code now?
No.
No.
So I can tell you right now, this didn't come from the zoning update committee. I don't know where that,
It had to have, because
no,
we
we have
didn't,
not had any discussions
well, we
about,
didn't just make this up.
well, I'm telling you,
Well, we're gonna-
we have not discussed above-ground storage tanks, so I don't know where that came from.
Well, I think we should have a definition of it, because when these, if these marinas do come to fruition, that's the only way they're gonna be able to store their product.
Store what product?
I mean, if
Gasoline, if we have docks, if we have working docks in our marinas,
they're gonna be in tanks.
above-ground storage tanks.
Okay.
It doesn't hurt to have a definition.
it's fine.
Okay,
Okay.
okay,
And I'll say that if you, in addition to have a definition of a water storage tank, then I think that
Be more specific
would be
and
more
covered, yes.
specific and would separate a water tank from
Yep.
a regular above-ground storage tank.
okay.
Yes.
So here's my only concern about this, because I'm older than Todd, and I expire faster than Todd, okay? Which is that I think it wouldn't be too hard to go through the definitions of things, uses that we have added to the waterfront or have in the waterfront. But some of these other things that are just sort of like, we're not sure from where they're from, or they don't relate to this zone, we're gonna be here for a long time.
Yeah,
tonight.
but
Well, the
they're in the
problem is
table.
the amended use table is amended with all the uses that the zoning committee did, not just for the waterfront district. So we added use, like, we
Right.
split things, we added things that
Right.
don't have definitions now and need them.
Right, but an above-ground storage tank isn't, I mean,
But I think we're getting hung up on something that might not be that important at this point.
Exactly.
So I
Okay.
think we should keep moving.
okay.
ADU, we're going to adopt the state
Yes,
definition
we
of
are
that.
going
That is-
to adopt
whatever
the
this is,
state
it's wrong.
definition.
Uh-huh.
We don't have a choice.
Keep going, Todd.
Number 9, agricultural structure. I wasn't sure why we're calling that out separately. But are these accessory or primary uses?
How would you even, I don't know that does it matter?
No.
Whether it's a primary or an accessory, if we're talking
I
about
don't
a
know why we're defining
definition?
it. Okay.
Do we use agricultural structure anywhere in the language or the use table?
I haven't seen it.
I don't think we have it anywhere.
I say strike it.
I would keep it in until we are absolutely certain that we don't have it, because having a definition that is not actually in the use of something that's not actually in the use table doesn't hurt. Not having a definition that's that hurts, but having, so I wouldn't strike it, I'd keep it until we decide if we need it or not.
Well, you do talk about an accessory building or structure to be used for agricultural products, including what is in this definition.
It's not relevant to the waterfront zone.
Number 16, automatic teller machine.
Yeah.
Is this a standalone thing? Is this
where-
within a
I'm-
structure?
I'm not sure. We might have put, we have had a proposal, as you know. There may be new proposals. I don't think we put ATMSs on our prohibited list, but we do need a definition for that.
You wanna
It's someplace in our zoning code. I remember, you know,
Is this
that
a-
discussion and contributing to that discussion in the zoning revision committee.
Is this an issue though of like a standalone, like you're saying, cause
Yeah.
I mean, gas stations have them.
Right.
You know,
So I'm just asking.
everywhere have them.
Right.
Could come up as a drive-through also.
We had a petition a while ago.
For a drive-through ATM.
They have just standalone ATMs though too, Dick.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying, also as a drive-through, a lot of places have.
So we need a
ATM built
definition,
into the
so
side of the
let's,
bank.
Citizens Bank.
But I think the question is do you want this to apply specifically to standalone or those that are incorporated into another building or both? Because right now, I would say this definition covers any ATM.
exactly, and it should, because then the performance standards or the specific and objective criteria would call out the specific circumstances, whether it's a standalone, a drive-through, part of a, you know, other complex. I just leave it alone.
Bed and breakfast. A single building or part thereof used only for residential dwelling and occupied by the owner thereof. I just don't think it's appropriate to say only because you're using it for bed and breakfast. But then, more importantly, these A through H would require a use variance. Is that what we want, or performance standard?
I feel like these are already in either the specific and objective criteria or the performance standards, and I can make sure that they're matching, and then I can get rid of this.
Okay. And then H, I'm concerned about the zoning board setting the number of years on the bed and breakfast, letter H.
So, I don't think we talked about H. I mean, I don't think that we talked about,
Zoning board doesn't have authority to do that anyways.
they don't, yeah, I don't think that we talked about that. And the other thing is, I think we talked about 5 bedrooms in the waterfront maybe, because we didn't want people building like these gargantuan bed and breakfasts, but we didn't, that wasn't necessarily for like the whole town. I mean, if somebody has a big old 8-bedroom house and they wanna have a bed and breakfast there.
Well, then Ashley's probably right. These must be performance standards for the waterfront.
Yep. I think they are.
Okay, but you're going to get rid of H, about the 2-year renewal by the zoning board.
You're
Yes.
gonna strike that, right?
Yes.
It'll be more like a council motion for licensing.
Number 29 is civic, and I just didn't understand the inclusion of municipal parking there.
29.
Yes.
And you didn't understand the municipal parking reference.
Don't understand that. I don't understand why we're defining civic.
I don't know why we are either.
It must have come up somewhere. But if we don't need it, I'll just get rid of it.
I'm just wondering if it was copied from somebody else's code. Seems like it.
Bill Gerlach had a question about number 30, which is civic building. Yes, are we intending to draw a distinction between a civic building tied to a not-for-profit organization versus a civic building tied to a non-profit organization? Just not sure if the distinction applies to planning.
that came up, it, not that we came up with that decision, but that came up in very specific reference to, in the zoning code, in the uses for, let me find my use.
Well, I have a
statement.
note under there about nonprofit organization, club, lodge. We're so far
Yes.
from the conversation that I
Yes.
don't recall.
Yeah, that's what this was, that's where this came from. Because what we were trying to sort out was that we wanted to make it clear that nonprofit applied to all of those uses, not just the first one. There'd been some sort of argument with an applicant's attorney over that. And that's where that came from. Where is the, I'm looking for the language here. Oh, it's under section 4, public and semi-public uses. Item B, nonprofit organization, club, lodge, social or community center building. The discussion was, because an applicant's attorney had argued about this, that nonprofit only applied to the organization club. It didn't apply to the lodge, social or community center building. So somehow, that's how we ended up discussing civic, but I don't think we ever meant, I don't think it ever,
You have performance criteria of building requirements for that use,
right,
but
but
it doesn't identify it as a civic building.
right, but the issue was that the qualifier nonprofit needed to apply to all
All
of
of
those
them.
things, not just the first item in the list.
Okay. I agree with that,
Okay.
but what does civic building have to do with it?
I have no, I think this was just one of these, I don't know, like, we had a discussion about this. Some of this stuff is, I don't know. I almost wonder if it would be more useful, for Ashley and I to go through these, because some of these are like, there were sort of random bubble thoughts that happened at the zoning update committee. They didn't really get applied to anything, but they were like stream of consciousness discussion. And now they seem to be in here, and I'm not sure we need all of them. So I would be willing, before the next meeting, to go through these with Ashley and pull out the ones that were, random.
The other thing we should do is you should tell us what your questions and concerns are, so we can potentially resolve those as well. The three of us maybe take this on together, we get a organized draft that reflects your recollection, my recollection, maybe Sue's
Susan's
notes,
recollection.
and Todd's concerns, and brings back a full set for review, and we
Yeah.
put this on the agenda.
That's fine with me.
I think that's better use of our time than to try to
Yeah.
get
Why
through
are we
these now.
defining fast food restaurant?
Because we're outlawing them in many districts.
Okay.
We are?
I don't know if you can do that.
Yeah, we're saying they're not permitted in
I don't know if
certain
you can do that
areas.
unless you're restricting all restaurants. I guess that's a conversation for a different day.
So let's, the three of us, try to resolve as much of this as we can.
They're not on the prohibited list, though.
I don't think they are, but I think that drive-throughs may be.
Well, no, but there's zoning stuff for drive-through, so, yeah.
Drive-throughs for banks and pharmacies are okay. Drive-throughs for fast food are not. But we have to have a definition of a fast food restaurant. They're all over the place. We need a definition. These are just definitions. They're not regulations.
No, but I also will say this, I don't want to put definitions in there that we really don't need, that are gonna open up a can of worms, that somebody's gonna take to the zoning board and say, this use isn't on the, but it's
But you
close enough to
defined it.
this, and it's in your definitions, and that worries me. So I think we do have to be a little careful about the definitions, because people will use them at the zoning board to make an argument that their use is close enough.
Agreed.
I would suggest that we drag you into that conversation as well on definitions, because you contributed significantly at the zoning update committee on definitions. So,
So maybe why don't we do that, and we'll pull out all the ones that actually were more than thought bubbles or random stream of consciousness discussions, and whatever Todd's questions are.
Do you all agree to get rid of numbering, and just do it alphabetically?
please get rid of numbering.
Yeah.
I'm begging you to
Yeah,
just drop
because
the numbers.
We're gonna add and subtract.
And then you
we
can
have to
add and
renumber.
subtract at will, and we can do it alphabetically and not have to renumber everything in the whole section.
Okay, I think we have a plan for that, for the definitions. Okay, so that brings us back to height.
So I'm gonna let Ashley talk about this, but basically what we don't want to have happen with the waterfront is that we have these super tall buildings. And even though we have a 35-foot height restriction, the General Assembly passed a law last year that essentially,
Further than that back,
yeah, or what's it?
several years ago.
Several, whatever, that, thank you, that doesn't allow us to penalize people in terms of height if they have to elevate their building in order to meet FEMA or CRMC flood standards. So South Kingstown and a couple of other communities have done a really good job, I think, of coming up with a matrix so that as we allow this development on the waterfront, we won't get 55-foot tall buildings, that they will still have to be within a reasonable height, which A, is aesthetically more pleasing, lets people see more of the water, and doesn't block the view of, people who are adjacent, don't lose their water view. So Ashley, I sent Ashley South Kingstown's, and then she did some other work on it, so. And John has looked into this too.
And I think Westerly also has an ordinance, and I think basically what we're looking for is just your agreement in general that this is something that we need to have. We'll start with just addressing the height, because I think we've got a lot of other things that are time sensitive that are going on. We've done a kind of an overview of other coastal resiliency items that you can consider that we would probably be bringing to the update committee and asking their interest, but wanted to provide some context around, the larger kind of approach to this. But if in general the planning board agrees, we can draft the section using South Kingstown, using Westerly, using Todd, who worked on the Westerly draft.
I think
with
the Westerly one's the
John.
best.
Of course you do, because you wrote it.
Has pretty pictures.
So does the South Kingstown one. And then bring you back something for consideration to, pass forward.
How long would that take, do you think?
Well, Todd already wrote it, so.
Well, Todd already wrote it, because one thing about this waterfront thing is that I think the height thing has to go with that order. I think this has to be part of it, because,
Well, Ashley did include the new definition from the state of building height
yeah,
in those definitions, which
Okay.
goes a long way towards that.
Making that change alone, I think, would
Right.
help.
What we're talking about now is helping people understand how it is applied.
Yes.
yeah. So is, in the definition, is that enough from somebody being able to build a 55-foot building? Because they want their 35 feet and they're, according to FEMA, need to be up 20 feet?
I don't, just doing that, probably not. It's a start, but, I mean, we can, Todd and John and I can work on that and try to figure that out and have something.
We don't have to have a public hearing on this, right?
Correct.
No.
It's an ordinance.
You can just send it to the council,
So could we?
but they do.
They do. Could we try and have a draft to vote on for our meeting, our next meeting?
We can try anything, yeah.
I mean, if the Westerly one's really good and Todd wrote it, why don't we just steal that? I mean, if you send it all out to
Or
us.
South Kingston.
If it makes sense to John, like it makes sense.
No, I mean,
to-
I think I think you should take a look at both of them. We should cobble something together between the two, or just maybe even just take one.
So,
Make it Tiverton and move it forward.
On the definition page. Basically cover what you'd want to count building height for your waterfront. Like how it's defined.
We're gonna take the state definition for the of building height.
Yep.
Include that, and then how you calculate that is what we will work on before the 10th,
Right.
before next Friday, actually.
So if it's in the definition, I guess I'm asking, that doesn't cover it though, right?
I think it does, actually.
so I'm a little confused here because we have material that Ashley handed out. I think South Kingston again has a sea level rise, a resiliency overlay district, dealing with the global warming and the apparent increase in water height that's occurring. But we also have building height issues. And then thirdly, we have design standards for buildings in the waterfront districts. Shouldn't they all be pretty much, folded into the same?
So the difference is that the state law change basically said that if you have to raise your structure for base flood elevation, above base flood elevation, which means you putting this thing up on stilts.
Right.
That you can measure your height, not at the ground,
Right,
but at
right.
the, so
Right,
then
right.
the third,
Like a freeboard.
and, right, so
I-
then
I-
the 35 feet becomes 55 feet.
Exactly, so that needs to be addressed, but.
That's
But
the
there-
focus of this next step.
But
Beyond
there are
that,
other elements to sea level rise
Yes.
resiliency.
yes, that's a
And-
whole different discussion, but South Kingstown did it in the context of a resiliency overlay. Not to say we have to do it that way. I
Okay.
think the focus now is probably more like the Westerly ordinance, which is to just address the building height piece of this.
Okay, that's
We'll
fine.
come back to the concept of like
That's right.
resiliency planning, later.
Well-
We don't have the time at this point or the bandwidth to add this to the conversation.
Okay.
We're just sharing
Okay, I
with
just
you
wanted
two
to
different
clarify that
examples.
because it appeared to me like we were throwing this into the mix.
No, we're just showing you two different ways it's been done. I think for the purposes of what we have going on at the moment, we've gotta focus on,
So if we have Todd's Westerly, why not just go with that? And then we can approve that, if we get a new draft of it that just crosses out Westerly and pencils in Tiverton, we can just approve that at our next meeting in 2 weeks,
that's the plan.
That's the plan.
okay?
Because
Now,
just so that we don't pass this waterfront stuff, and then the first thing that happens is somebody builds a 52-foot high building.
Okay, so let's do that. We'll just dealing with the height, we'll take Westerly. Okay, so,
Are you going to also deal with the height on traditional Main Street, which is 50 foot tall?
It's not being changed tonight, Jamie.
When is that gonna happen?
The day I get a crystal ball, I won't be here.
But it should, I mean, if it's something that should be addressed. It's 50 foot, we want 5-story buildings on Main Road.
There's a
By
zoning,
right.
Jamie, there's a zoning ordinance committee, right? They'll be discussing that, if they have not already, and they'll make their recommendations.
I just keep asking because Tricia had said that this would be a planning board discussion and not a revision committee discussion.
well,
And it was never, traditional Maine was never voted in by the revision committee to begin with, but, and so it's never been discussed, the height. And do we want big 5-story tall buildings by right?
you
on Main Road?
can't have that, you can't have that now.
Well, it needs to be discussed before it goes to town council.
So that brings us, I believe, I think height is taken care of, we have a
Yes.
plan. So that brings us to F. Now, this is the multiple,
Multiple uses on a single parcel, let's say.
multiple uses on a single lot. So, traditionally, Tiverton has not allowed more than one primary use on a lot. Why would we want to change that?
I'm not suggesting you do. The question was posed to me.
Of course, we now have, we now have the, because of the state law change, we now have the fact that people can build an accessory dwelling unit on their
Yes.
house lot.
Yes.
But that state law, we have no control over that. But so, tell me what the issue is here.
The question was posed to me as to whether multiple uses could occur, multiple primary uses could be had on a waterfront lot. I said, I don't think so. And I looked at the zoning ordinance, specifically Article 5, Section 2. I interpret that as permitting more than one principal structure in the commercial, industrial, and waterfront zones, not more than one use. That's plain language. I talked to John about this. That has not been the practice, is my understanding. And if that's not the practice, then we should have the language come into conformity with what the practice is, if that's what you want.
Well, clarity.
Which section?
Article 5, Section 2.
So if you think about it, Stu, think about, Tom's Market, the lot with Tom's Market on it. You've got Tom's Market, and then you've got the Dunkin' Donuts that has the pizza place in it. I mean, we've got, or where you've got CVS, and then you've got the restaurant thing in front. I mean, in the past, and it kind of is up to the building official, but most building officials in the past have interpreted that, and most of the solicitors have said, yeah, that's fine, that you can have multiple primary uses on a commercial or an industrial or a waterfront property, not on a residential property. But Todd pointed out, it does actually say structures, just because we've interpreted it that way, but we need to figure that out.
That's a policy decision.
The language is B up there.
So right here.
So in the industrial zone, any kind of manufacturing facility would probably require ancillary buildings, just as the old textile mills always had a bunch of other buildings around that contributed to the manufacturing process. So in the industrial zone, it makes sense to have, to allow multiple buildings on a single lot, provided that they're all related to, ancillary to, the main purpose of the facility. But elsewhere, I think we're going down a very slippery slope if we allow, if we don't clearly prohibit additional buildings on a single lot.
But it's two things we have
And
going
don't
on.
make it very clear that those buildings have to be related in some way to the primary use.
So it's two things we have going on, right?
Okay.
I interpret the ordinance right now to say, in the industrial zone, as you've pointed out, you can have multiple buildings. That makes sense, right? That is permitted right now under my interpretation. Clear language. The issue is whether you permit multiple principal uses on a single lot.
I would say absolutely not.
That's not been the practice, though.
It depends on who's been giving out the permits. I know.
Well, we want to clarify the language
And you
one way
should.
or the other, depending on what you want to do.
Right.
What about for the future of the PDP?
PDP has special
Different,
rules, so
has its own
we're gonna leave that
set of rules.
aside.
That's different.
I mean, we've had someone come in with a proposal to have multiple uses, to add a building to a commercial lot.
Or-
And the initial response was not, no, that's not allowed, because I think in practice, it's been permitted.
Well, we're only talking waterfront zone tonight.
No, we're talking about commercial, waterfront, and industrial, because that's what's in
Yeah,
the
but we're not,
language now.
but we're only making a decision on waterfront now.
No.
Where you're making a decision on this specific language as it reads now, which
Well-
includes those three districts.
Yeah, well, I think you're opening Pandora's box if you allow multiple primary uses on the same lot.
What you're already doing with that with the commercial.
Yeah,
Your
but we
example,
should,
Tom's
we
and
should
Justin.
not be doing that. We should not be doing that.
Exists.
So, just to be the devil's advocate here, there's a part of me that agrees, but then on the other hand, would I rather see somebody build two attractive little buildings, right, with, versus, okay, I can't have multiple buildings,
Strip mall.
build a strip mall.
But,
That's, there's a,
and that goes to my other part, right? Not to interrupt you.
yes, go ahead.
The definition of retail, business, office, and/or consumer service complex, which is in your district use table, actually, and it allows, right now, the structures have to be connected. I'm proposing that you change that so they're not connected. And then you get your Tom's Market, your pizza place, or whatever else.
Remember that all of this is coming before you. Like, they're not gonna just go pull a building permit to build multiple buildings on a property. You're gonna see it either come in as a complex of uses on separate, structures, or like the one that we had, they're gonna come with an existing use, with an existing structure and say, I'd like to add another building, this is the use. That's going through some form of review process.
What,
They have to meet parking requirements, they
Okay.
have to meet setbacks, it has to
Well-
be a permitted use in the district.
Okay,
It's
but-
not a free-for-all.
okay, but we need to add one additional consideration, architectural design standards.
Which would apply to any district that we apply, right now.
So this
it's-
language,
It's in the three form-based code districts.
But it's not mandatory, so it doesn't really mean anything.
well, we're going to adopt that into your subdivision
Let's
regulations
hope
by
so.
the planning board. The
Let's-
planning board gets to do that, don't
Let's,
forget.
let's hope so. But we also need to have design standards for waterfront, because we're gonna have a lot of commercial buildings on the waterfront. We also have, I will accept what Tricia says if we can do something to deal with strip malls. That is, I think, a threat to the town of Tiverton.
Well,
And I think that if we can do, say, those different uses have to be separated, then that, with design standards, we could then control, and all of the other tools that we have, we could control that. So you guys have convinced me that multiple uses on a single lot are fine if we have the tools to control it, and we would need design standards. And we would
right
need,
now,
and we
the
would
only
need
thing you can
language
do
to
is a
make
strip
sure that,
mall.
we would
Ish.
need language
You have to connect them.
to make sure that they are not connected, cannot be connected. Why are we promoting strip malls? That is totally against smart
That's what the ordinance
growth.
says now.
Smart growth.
That is a use in your district use
I
table.
know, I know.
And it has a definition.
And it's bad news, it needs to be taken out.
Okay.
Does everybody
That's
agree?
policy,
Do
that's
you-
not me.
Do you all like the strip malls?
But can you really, I mean, I don't love the strip mall, believe me, but can you really tell somebody they can't build a strip mall? I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, you can.
Okay.
Absolutely.
We would turn that, we would flip that around and say that if you have a complex of multiple uses on one property, that you cannot connect more than two of them, or something like that, so that you get a complex of
Yeah, so-
buildings
'cause I
as
wouldn't-
opposed to a strip
I also wouldn't
mall.
want somebody to say, well, wait a second, I just wanted to have a hairdresser on, in a little tiny accountant's office next floor, and you're telling me I have to put them, I mean,
No, I
Two-
think
two-
there's a happy
So
medium.
two connected would be fine. A 5 or 6 conventional strip mall is not fine, and yes, we do have the authority to say no.
A strip mall is 40,000 square feet or more, by your definition right now.
So we need to look at a couple of different things to,
We've got strip malls that are smaller than that.
you could.
Or there's something different then.
right. So I think there's a couple of moving parts to this, that's not as simple as like striking words in this piece here, that we've got to, this is a bigger issue.
Okay, but we
So-
can work on it.
So does
Yes.
everybody agree that multiple uses on a single lot are okay? That we want to discourage, as much as possible, conventional strip malls with the asphalt in front and in the parking lot in front and the kind of thing that we have at Bliss Four Corners right now in a couple of spots. Does everybody agree with that? That would be okay?
We're talking
And
about
we would-
commercial, industrial, waterfront zones only.
Yeah,
Right.
and that we would have the tools to control that, particularly if we have design standards and the other tools that, in the site review process. I think we've got a consensus here. But now we need some language that we can actually vote on, hopefully in,
We'll bring it.
in our October meeting.
Yes.
Okay. Todd, do you have enough feedback now for,
Yes, we do.
good.
I have one question, just out of curiosity. Would our zoning now, the way the setbacks are written, if you wanted to create like a, I don't know, like a little villagey center, right? It's like 4 or 5 buildings. Would you have to have and they were allowed on one property, would you have to have like the regular setbacks between buildings, or could you
No.
have like a walkway? Like,
You can put those buildings as close as fire code will let you.
okay.
Can you move the buildings up to the sidewalk?
Only if the setbacks for that whole lot. So the setbacks only apply to the entirety of the lot, not to structures within the lot. But in order to pull them up to the sidewalk, you'd have to have a 0 setback.
Which TMS does. That's what we have in the northern part of town already.
And it'll be unified review.
So.
You could do-
And you could give them a
I'm-
dimensional variance.
I'm thinking
to
of the
whatever you
traditional,
want.
I'm thinking of the traditional Main Street, and, you know, that's also part of the smart growth movement to, you know, to get away from parking in front. Instead, move the building up to the sidewalk and then disperse the parking on the sides and in the back. But,
And I think in all three of your form-based code districts, the setbacks or the front setbacks
Yes.
are reduced. One of them is 0.
Zero, yeah.
yeah, but there are differences in the three that we need to
Yeah.
think about if we're gonna go to just one. So, do you have enough to?
I do, thank you.
To deal with that? So G is, we've already dealt with, you know, G is an ongoing thing that we can deal with in September or in a special meeting. And then that brings us to H, and this is design standards. And Ashley has raised the question, you raised the question in your memo of March 27, and we never actually answered that question. We have a very elaborate design standard document for the three form-based code zones. All we need to do is put those in our subdivision regulations so that they have regulatory teeth, and we can then, you know, avoid some of the building issues, architectural issues that we've had to deal with. We also have design standards for the industrial park. They're in the, they were adopted by town council. I don't know how enforceable they are, but I had a hand in putting those together some years ago. But we don't have design standards in the waterfront, and I think we need them in the waterfront because what we're trying to do is create an attractive waterfront where people will want to get out of their car and walk and go into the shops, the boutiques, the restaurants, you know, downtown Bristol, Water Street in Warren are good examples of vibrant waterfront areas. And I think that's what we're trying to encourage. We're not trying to encourage the Fall River waterfront. So we do need to stop metal buildings and cinder block buildings and that kind of thing that we're gonna get in town if we don't, you know, adopt design standards for the waterfront. Ashley raised the question, do we want to go with the design standards that we already have for the code-based zone districts? I think that those design standards were put together thinking of a downtown, particularly a traditional New England downtown style. And I don't think that they necessarily apply to a waterfront where we're going to have a much broader mix of buildings. We're going to have some buildings that are not going to be cute, you know, downtown, you know, restaurants or boutiques or whatever. So I think we need design standards that are a little more utilitarian and a little more flexible. And I think we found a good example in the Portsmouth design standards. And so I asked Ed to make sure everybody had a copy of that. Actually, they were distributed back in April as well. So I would, again, I'm wondering if we can put something together. Why reinvent the wheel? Why not just take out of the Portsmouth standards what we like, and, you know, and then bring that to the board, bring that back to the board in September.
So that's a pretty heavy
a lot.
lift for September. It's only 2 weeks.
Well,
what
but
we
we're
could-
talking about cut and paste here. We're not talking about drafting or crafting anything. I think we're talking about basically what we're doing with Todd's Westerly document, where, we're scratching out Portsmouth and penciling in Tiverton.
If that's truly all you want to do, then yeah, we can do that. What I heard you say, in part of the introduction to this issue was that we should take what we like. There's two ways to do this. We can just modify Portsmouth and make it Tiverton,
Yeah.
as is whole cloth with, very little revision.
Right.
And then you can make a decision based on that. Or we could put on the September agenda to actually do a review of what's in Portsmouth, and you tell me what you're keeping and what you're not keeping, and then we would draft something that would require very little review and revision, because you'd already told us what you want in there and don't want in there. If you just want the whole thing, we'll just do that. I have not read them in detail, but I have to imagine that there are things in there that might not work well or not be applicable. I don't know, I haven't read them in detail.
I think we should review before we accept anything.
Okay, we could then put something together, and I will contribute to this. In fact, I will write the whole damn thing. What I think we should accept in Tiverton and what we should not accept, taking the Portsmouth as the model. I didn't see anything in the Portsmouth that I had any heartburn about at all, because they're so similar to Tiverton. But I could go through that again and then write a memo, which I will get out to the planning board in advance of the meeting, well in advance of the meeting in September, and then we can take it from there.
The other,
I'd be happy to do that and go through that myself.
the other thing we could do is at least structure an outline for Tiverton based on Portsmouth, and then you all come prepared to say, what sections you're in agreement with and not in agreement with, and if we need to modify, we modify, and then we would just plug the text in under the outline, and
Right,
it would be pretty easy to do that.
We'll have that document either electronically or in hard copy.
Again, if you just want us to take Portsmouth and make it Tiverton, we can do that, and then you can have
Well,
that
it's
for September.
probably, it would certainly be a better approach to review it and to see if there is anything in there that really doesn't fit in Tiverton. But I think that, particularly based on our discussions tonight about what we want in the Waterfront District. So I would be happy to do that, make some recommendations.
Would you envision this only applying to waterfront, or are the,
No, I think we should just apply this to Waterfront at this point.
okay. So
Because
then-
I think that the form-based code standards would pretty much apply to every other commercial area, but not so much to the waterfront. The waterfront is the standalone,
Okay,
where I think we need something a little different than what we have now.
so then for the September meeting, come prepared to offer from those Portsmouth standards, what you wanna keep, or what you wanna implement in
I will make
Tiverton.
specific recommendations on what are keepers and what should be jettisoned,
Okay,
if anything. It might be that I find that everything is fine, but
so.
We
Ed,
have
can
a
put
lot
that
of
on
other
the
work to
agenda?
do with special use permits. So
I
I
know,
just don't want to
but
lose
we-
track of that either.
But design standards to me are very, very, very important.
I know they are.
I'm not,
if you're going to adopt those into your subdivision regulations, though, you have to have a public hearing.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
And if we're going to do that, we should try to do the form-based code ones then, concurrently.
Yes, oh, yeah, right, absolutely. Okay,
And I guess the PDP as well, since
So
those are written.
What we'll do, and when I say we, I mean Weston and Sampson.
Oh, thank you.
Not you.
Thank you.
We will start to take the form-based code standards as they are and turn them into regulation
Yeah.
as they are. We're not gonna change anything.
yeah,
We're just gonna migrate those over, create a section or add to a section in the subdivision regulations that takes those standards
Yeah.
and moves them, and then simultaneously, we'll work on the waterfront piece of it, and then once we have more direction after the September meeting, we'll turn those into regulatory language that'll go probably in the same section, just applying to a different district, and then you could take those as one, hold your
PDP.
public hearing,
Yep.
and adopt,
yeah, good. That's fine.
okay?
Can I just get a sense as to where we are with the other zoning districts and specific objective criteria? Where are we with the industrial?
So we haven't done,
That's the one we haven't done, right?
we haven't done industrial yet.
Residentials, those should be easy.
Haven't done residential yet.
Are there any changes planned for the residential zones?
Not really. I mean, I don't think there's much. The residential zones, I mean, we haven't been through the use table, but I don't think there's gonna be a whole lot of changes. And I don't even think there's gonna be a whole lot of changes to the industrial. I mean, we really tackled the biggest things got tackled first. Then there's a whole lot of other stuff like parking or signage or, just that sort of like, all that kind of one-off stuff in there. But we're doing the hardest ones right now. I mean, this is the hard, even the main road one, while the use table changes a bit, it's not as big as this. We're doing the R120 stuff or the conservation development. None of it's at that level.
Okay. Time is not our friend.
Listen, I'd like to be done too. I'd be okay with being finished.
Well, I mean, we, year after year after year went by without us ever updating our zoning or really our subdivision regulations. And so we just, we got to a point where the task became huge. Because we were so busy approving applications that we thought that was our only job, and that we never got around to the housekeeping chores. So
It's Herculean, I understand. We have a timeline.
So I think that's the end of our agenda.
I'll make a motion.
You
Make a
You
motion?
can make a privileged motion.
I will make a privileged motion at 9:35